I'll start off a little bit. We have a bunch of department heads this evening. As you know, Saturday we concentrated on economic development pretty much. Tonight, with the exception of the school department, which we've talked about. In fact, I talked about it with Joe a little bit, and they're gonna have that ad hoc budget committee with the school department, so that can handle any of the school situations. So we're not going to be discussing schools tonight, but we will be discussing public safety, and we have Pat Daly and Chief Montoya on. We'll be discussing social services, and we have Tara Booker on. We're going to be discussing public works and finance a little bit, and we have Pat McLaughlin and Joshua on. So and the iPad mystery person is probably Jackie. She's anonymous.
That is correct.
I figured that. Okay. So we've scheduled up to 3 hours, but fear not. If we, this is a free form discussion, and if we feel that we've got what we need out of it before the 3 hours, then fine. But I put a 3 hour block in there just to have. Stacy, you made it. Good. You're not at work, are you? You made it from home this time?
Yeah, I'm at home.
Good.
You'll have to pardon the little fur thing that walks behind me. That's my cat. She's hearing all the voices. So
She's freaking out, right? Okay.
Yeah, she's like, who is that? She's nosy. So if she makes appearance, you'll just have to forgive her.
We'll like it. We'll like it. So
she made an appearance on our public safety meeting.
The star. All right. So we're here tonight again as support staff to the council. The main thing is we want to hear the goals of the council for those major areas: public safety, social services, public works, planning, and finance. We have Josh here. I just see Kevin just got on. I see Kevin's logo up there. Hi, Kevin.
I'm here. Sorry about being late.
No, not a problem. And here's Swanjay is here. So I think we've the whole council is present then, Mayor. So we got a good turnout tonight. So I think we're going to try to segment it, Paul, into service areas. And I think the first one we'll start with is public safety. Now, I could easily ring off 3 or 4 things that I'm concerned with, and I bet they wouldn't be that far off from what the council is concerned with in public safety. Now, public safety includes the fire services, police, but it also includes building inspector, really, which is really a public safety function, as well as fire marshals. They are kind of related, the two. So that's one of the reasons we have Deanna here, besides just to link planning with safety and the other topics that we have. So I'll turn it over to Paul now to get it kicked off.
Okay. Thank you, John. I think so. Just to make sure that I think we're with tonight's session, it's a little bit more. We're going to actually hear from the folks in those various areas with ideas that they generate, or is it the council will take direction first? We can go either way on that. It's up to you.
I'd like to hear from the council first, only because I don't want to overly influence them with our list. You'll be
Got it.
surprised how they probably intersect.
Well, I would imagine that they would. So that's kind of why it almost wasn't, it was a coin flip, whether to start in one
Exactly.
area or start in the other as to which way.
When
to
in
go.
doubt, I start with the council.
Right. So do you need to take a roll call, or mere fact that we've admitted them in and everyone is here, it's up to you if we need to take that.
Well, I think the mayor could just say, "Well, council are present," so for the record. So.
Everyone is present, all 7. Yep, we're good to go.
Okay.
All right, very good. All right, so 2 things tonight, I think that we want to continue on using a system that seemed to be fairly, at least known at this point, though. Where are we now? Where do we want to go? And then how are we going to get there? I think that when it comes to the issues that we're talking about this evening, we might also just add a little bit of another wrinkle in terms of the things that we want to, where we want to go. We might want to, kind of prioritize them in terms of which ones of them is it that we want to do now. I always look at, when we actually create what amounts to a business case, which typically means we're going to use resources. And in a business or an organization, resources are always, either they're placed here or they're placed there, but they can't be placed everywhere. So as a result of that, you have to make a business case for which ones of all the things that we could address, which ones will we, which is that where do we want to go and which ones do we want to go to. I'd like the council to, pick a particular, like is it a tunnel within public safety, which as John pointed out, kind of goes into a lot of different tunnels. But when it comes to public safety, if you just narrow that focus there, which are the things that, if we can kind of lump the where are we now and where do we want to go into kind of like one thought process? What are the places that we feel that are an issue? Where are we now? What's an issue with public safety that you've identified, and which ones of them do we want to go? What do we want to do with them? So if you can kind of think through that process first. Where are we with public safety specific to a particular area, geography wise, or a particular arena of thought? Where is the problem? Where is the issue? Where is the opportunity to improve public safety? And then what exactly is it that you think we should do to address that? So where are we now and where do we want to go? So who is it that wants to tee that off? If not, I'll just ask, participants to go after that. But anyone want to start there? Where are we now? What are the opportunities? What are the problems with public safety that we need to address? Or what are the opportunities we have to improve public safety? What are they? What are we now?
Excuse me, Paul, can you let Stacy in?
Oops. Oh, we had. Okay. Still have someone in the waiting room, whatever reason it keeps coming up. All right, she's here. I believe we should have her.
I see her, or I see her name. I don't see her physically. Okay.
All right, so we're at the where are we now, which is pretty much what is the, just for Stacy's sake, since she's not here, all we're asking is the members of the council to just think through the where are we now moment, which is where is it that public safety is is either at risk or there's some issue we need to address with public safety, or there is an opportunity for us to seize on something to make to address not just an issue or problem, but an opportunity for improved public safety. So either one of those, either a problem, an issue, or an opportunity to improve public safety that you think is worthy of us making a business case to do something about it, because that's what we need to do. And it's about something to do about it now, because I guarantee there's probably, we can put a laundry list of things that probably are, where are we now, public safety areas of interest. But what are the ones that you think we should, and this is the most important word now, near term, next 12 months, what are the things that we need to address or we should pay attention to now, near term, 12 months? So.
You want someone to start off?
Yes, anyone that want, if not, I'll just.
Okay. The mayor here, I'll throw some issues out. Looking at strengths and weaknesses, I think strength clearly represents the way the department's being run. If you go back to that legislation that was passed, our chief had instituted many of those policies that legislation called for. They were already happening here. Their relationship with the community and the neighborhoods, I think, is strong. But clearly they've been impacted like everybody else by COVID, at times being short-staffed due to people being out with the virus. On a long-term basis, if you look at the number of available police officers and women in our city, and I mention women specifically because I now believe we have 10 female officers, which I think is the highest number ever. And so I give kudos to the chief. That opportunity there is really a plus for our community. But at the same time, that then gets to the facility problem. There isn't another space for another locker if another female officer is hired. Long-term, a goal addressing the issues of the facilities or lack of size, I have to believe has an impact on the delivery of services at times as well. So I guess I would put those issues on the table there. And going a little bit further, whether or not the resources that are available to us, the rescue dollars, whether that provides some means of addressing some of those issues. But clearly, I think we have a very strong police department, well run. They're very connected to our community and to the people. They're not driving in cars alone. They're out in the community. The Rose City United programs comes to mind, that they're very involved and engaged in that. And they're really working to build personal relationships with the public. And I think that's a great strength that we have. And again, I give credit to our leaders at the police department. I'll stop there.
Mr. Mayor, did I capture it right? As you look at it on the screen, as I hit the high points?
I'm scanning.
Uh-oh.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, got it.
So, Mr. Mayor, it sounds like the one thing that, as far as a do now moment, that you're looking to address with public safety is in actually the facilities. That's the one in the near term, next 12 months. If there was one thing that you'd want to address with the resources that we have, it would be to do some, or the resources we can get our hands on with the federal monies, would be to do something with the facilities that the police department works in. Is that what that's what I heard. Is that what you?
Yeah, that's a good summary.
Okay.
There's a lot of federal infrastructure dollars that have even not been identified or fully adopted because DC is still quivering back and forth. But if this could be that one opportunity, generational, like the rescue dollars are last year and this year, where we could really address these issues. And I think we'd be foolish not to be aggressive as a United Council and the city administration to really seek that solution.
Okay, and that's kind of what, as others speak, if we can, basically giving the where are we now, and exactly what we're talking about doing is, and where do we want to go? And I think we need to we can link those two kind of nicely, and that's what you did, talking about where are we now is we have a very healthy, very effectively run and very effectively managed police department, but because of some of our own successes, we have a facility that needs to kind of catch up with the population that we now have serving in that building. So where do we need to go? And you're talking about a now moment. Where do we need to go in your mind would be to capture resources to address change in the facility. So that's exactly what we want. If others can kind of follow that same kind of theme of what is it you're describing that we are dealing with, and then what do you want us to take a resource either available to us that we know we have, and we have to take it away from some other place, or we could capture to do something now, near term. Cool.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank
Right,
you.
so who else wants to take a step in
Hi, Paul.
addressing one thing?
Good evening, Paul. This is Joe DeLucia.
Hi, Joe.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
So as I think everybody except for maybe you knows that I'm the chairman of the Public Safety Committee.
I don't know that, no. But I do know that now. Great.
So I spend a lot of time, obviously thinking about this meeting with John, and we had a public safety meeting, as a matter of fact, last night, and we're on top of the issues. I think one of the do now things that we need to think about is looking at in terms of the police department, training, recruitment, and retention, as those were issues that we discussed last night. The mayor got us most of the way there. The facility needs either expansion or to be replaced. I've had several conversations with the police chief about that. So, the conversation about the facility needs to begin in earnest now, because that's an evolution that takes some time.
Yep.
But there's more than just the police department to public safety, right? We have an ambulance service provider that's contracted will come up in the next couple of years. So this council or the next council is going to need to be educated and well-versed in that, so they can support the city manager on that one.
Joe, can I ask you if you were to look at that particular sector, what is their situation now, and what is it that, if anything, we would need to, in the near term, do to either support or let's say help them in any way, shape, or form that they would need some resources that is in the hands of the council to provide for them? Anything at all that in the near term?
Ambulance service?
Yes.
The ambulance service is a private contractor.
Okay.
So the councils now should be becoming familiar with the structure and the terms of that contract, so that when it comes time for the city manager to negotiate, we are able to give him input on the kind of services that we believe that the residents need. So if there needs to be adjustments, he learns that from us on the front end.
Got it. Okay. I'm sorry to stop you. I just wanted to make sure that,
Yep.
It sounded like you were raising a new sector, a new issue, and I wanted to make sure that maybe, and again, I might have been the only one that was unaware where you were headed with that, but just to make sure that we address, is there a now moment?
Right. And then the big one in the city of Norwich is the fire service. I mean, we commissioned a study. I have it here, and I affectionately term it as it's an $81,000 roadmap. We hired a private contractor to perform this study, made several recommendations, and they are leveled from level 1 being the most urgent all the way to level 5, which are things that are long range. So it dovetails nicely into what we're talking about here. So in terms of a do now, you know, we need to crack this thing back open and look at the level 1 and level 2 recommendations and get those things moving forward. Now, one big one has already been initiated and is making great progress, and that's improving our communication systems. But there's so much more going on that in our fire service that was addressed in the study that needs the action of this council. The first do now thing is that we need to clarify and codify once and for all that the entire fire service is under the authority of the city manager and falls under the oversight, according to the charter, of the NFD fire chief. And an additional piece that the study illuminated for us was a lot of HR concerns, policies, procedures, standard operations, things like that, that also needed some immediate do now kind of attention. So I'm looking forward to moving those things forward to the council for consideration in the very short term, in the next couple of months, because again, you know, the taxpayers expected us to make use of the $81,000 that we spent on this study and implement many of the changes that it identified for us. So that's a huge do now.
Perfect. Joe, in those level 1 and 2, were there any that you did not mention just now, but that are in that level 1 and 2 that are a due, but not now, but are a due later? But are there any others in there that are also due nows that would require additional resources from, because it's all about resource allocation at this point,
Right.
Resources from the town or whatever that you would also have a great deal of enthusiasm for?
Well, yeah, the one was to centralize our purchasing and make better use of economies of scale, because that had a direct impact on you know, on a year-to-year budget. Another, because we're feeling, I don't want to call it pressure, but it is to a certain degree. We're feeling pressure from the chiefs because they have pieces of apparatus that are being literally held together with baling wire and bubble gum in some cases that need to be replaced. And we also have a fleet that is much larger than a city of our size really needs. So, you know, that's another thing that's going to take some resources in terms of time in order to figure out what pieces should stay and what pieces should go. And then of the pieces that are going to stay, which ones need to be replaced immediately and then over the next 5 years, because, you know, a fire truck is anywhere from $650,000 up to, you know, $1 million+ dollars. So those are not small ticket items. So, you know, that takes some thought and some planning and so on. And that foundation needs to be built now, you know, right now.
All right. So you would definitely put a now moment, and I'm glad you guys are using this now language, because that's really going to allow us to focus our energy this evening as to, well, we can do 1,000 different things, but what are the things that we really want to pay attention to that need to get done in the near term, in the next 12 months? We need to say, all right, this was a good use of our time, our resources, our energy. So it sounds like at the very least, you'd want to have some kind of either, you know, process in place to identify the usability of the various pieces of equipment, which ones we need, which ones we don't, what to do with the ones we don't, and what to do with the ones we keep. Is that?
That's fair. That's
Okay.
fair. And
Right.
then there are just maybe a few others that I won't get down into the weeds about. But they're due nows that are currently ongoing because our chiefs are meeting as a group with the city manager, and they are moving on those things that were identified on the study. So even though they're in various stages of progress, they're all due nows, but they're in progress. At least they're in progress at this time.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Joe. And, because this is exactly where we want to be going this evening, is looking at, from a very practical standpoint, we're trying to create a strategic plan for the next year. So the more that we say, okay, what are the things that we need to, do now in the next 12 months that we commit to as a council to support with resources, time, people, money, whatever it takes to make that thing happen, so that 12 months from now, we realized we had a goal, we had a business case to do it now, and we did it. And that's kind of where we want to be. Perfect. Any additional thoughts, Joe, that you want to mention before we move on this, or?
No, I think that was enough for all in one bite, in one breath.
We're not measuring the size of the bites at this point. We're measuring the value of the bites, and it's as long as you're giving us good solid information to make some decisions about what are of all the do nows that everybody thinks we should do now, what are the do nows that the council is going to decide to do now. But we need the bucket. We need the list of potential things to draw from. And if anybody has an issue with, well, I don't think that's a do now, we need to hear it, but you've given us that. Perfect. Anyone else want to add to our list on public safety?
Tracy had her hand up a little bit ago, and Stacy's is up next.
All right. So go in that
Tracy.
order.
One thing I just want to say thank you very much to Chief Daly with the hiring of the 10 female officers. I think that's great. But I would also like to see more females in leadership roles when it comes to the police department and also in the fire department. I don't think there's enough women in those roles, and I would like to see more women and women of color in those roles. I agree with Joe said about implementing the changes for the fire study. I think we need that now. And again, I also agree with the building. I think Chief Daly's in desperate need of a new building. I mean, I took a tour of the police department not too long ago, and I was just amazed at I don't want to say inadequate, but just the lack of stuff that they need to perform their everyday duties. Like, I think they need more cameras. I think they need better radios. I think they need, just better equipment that they need on a daily basis to perform their job duties.
Well, this is on their bodies, on their personal safety, to bring safety to the public. Is that where? So radios and cameras, like body cams.
Yes, like body cams, street cams. They just need better cameras.
Okay. All right. Do we have that, Kevin? Yes, we do. That's exactly what we want to make sure that when you start talking about because you're doing the where we are now, and it's like, well, where's the delta? What is the thing that we need to do now to improve public safety in some form or fashion? And you've identified a couple of things that would definitely give the public a sense that we're helping them become more safe by including, more equipment for them, the facility, the building. You definitely supported the mayor in that, and also leadership, the kind of leadership from people within the ranks that represent them as well.
And, I think, like, when I took a look at the holding areas that, God forbid somebody has to get locked up. And just the holding facility itself was just just alarming to me. They just need just a whole, it's old, dusty, dirty. They just need a facility to fit their needs. Also, when it comes to recruiting, I think we should be going to high schools, colleges, job fairs, reaching out to the young people, young women, motivating them to want to make a difference, to want to join the department. Advertising sign-on bonuses, wages, stuff like that, stuff to entice people to want to join.
Okay, so that would be absolutely a do it now moment. Are you suggesting that we should at least investigate ways to attract? I mean, you gave a couple of examples: going to high schools, going to colleges, going to job fairs, signing bonuses. But are you suggesting a do it now moment is put some energy and effort in the department to think about how we could improve recruiting and retention? Is kind of what I heard.
Yes,
Okay.
because I mean, they're short staffed.
Right, exactly. Where do we start? So, some of these initiatives will have their impact in year 2, 3, and 4. But what are we doing in the next 12 months that we are making an argument to do now to improve that outcome in years 2, 3, and 4? Cool. Anything else that?
Yeah, this is the mayor. This might be a good opportunity to allow a little bit exchange from our chief of police. The issues that she raises are valid, but I already know the way they address some of those issues. I don't want people leaving tonight's meeting thinking they're not doing those things on the recruiting side, because they are. Just a thought at this point in time.
I think, Mr. Mayor, I think we do need to have, these folks that are, like you said, the chief and everyone that has issues that are going to pop into think about adding to the do it now list for them to weigh in and give their counsel and advice as to what it is that they're hearing. So if we want them to interject as things occur, we can, or wait until a particular sector is done and then say, okay, let's have them make sure that there's clarity about what's going on. Your call.
I assume Pat's on the call.
I'm here, Mayor.
Yeah,
it might be best because I get carried away sometimes, and public safety went a little long last night. If I weigh in at the end, because I'm making notes of everyone's concerns, and at the end I can go down and address everyone's, and then add in my own what I'd like to see done right now. If not, I could take all 3 hours going back and forth.
Okay. All right. So other members of the council, then, are there any other things with public safety? I think, we had someone who had their hand up next.
Yeah, Stacy, right now, Paul, the pecking order is Stacy had asked to go next, then Darrell, then Singh. So we'll work through it that way. Stacy.
Okay. Next up.
Okay, I'm here. Again tonight, I'm sorry. But something that we're doing now and hasn't been mentioned yet is the upgrade to our communication system vis-a-vis the fire department, the fire service in the city of Norwich. We're spending a lot of money getting that up into the 21st century. So I think we need to at least have that on the list. That's something that we are doing now, and in gearing up to implement a new system.
Okay. So it is due now because we are doing it now.
Right.
Okay. Is there anything that is on your list of what we could be doing now that we're not yet doing that we should add to that list? Is there anything on we should consider also?
No, I think that my other things that we need to be thinking about and making lists for have already been spoken about.
Okay. All right. So who's our next up?
I am. This is Alderman Wilson. So for me, I think, one of the things we have been working on is the community engagement piece from the police department. I think one of the things that can easily be done in the near term and this is not just the police department, but I think all of public safety is figuring out a plan as to not so much just the recruitment, but the involvement more or less of our high schoolers and middle schoolers to get them to a point of learning some of the basics within the field, more of the junior police academies and fire academies and whatnot. I know that's some of the things that they're working on, and it can easily be achieved within the near term. But I think one of the things I like to see it as is a way to create our own recruiting pool, local recruiting pool, to get individuals that are homegrown, know the city, know the fire service, the police service very well, and are ready to step into the role of giving back and serving and protecting our community. I think that would also help in some of the areas of that minority recruitment piece, but also with women. I think it's just something easy to do. It's not as large of expense, and I think it's something that can easily be achieved. So that's something I would like to see us do, expand in that area. I think as far as recruitment, what the word I will use, and it kind of goes back to Saturday, is how as a city across the board can we as within the city, and this includes us from the council side all the way down to every department, how can we bring things across the board to better advertise not only the good things that they do within the department, but also taking it up a notch as far as marketing ourselves, our department, what we have to offer. I think it can't just be a lone effort by the police chief and his staff, but we've got to figure a way to promote everything across the city. I think that's kind of the big picture that kind of carries over from Saturday, is how do we market our city and all of the segments and help bring them along to help within that recruitment piece. So I think that's a big piece. And then I think the other, for me, kind of lumping it in one is, I will say it as infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, that's talking everything from vehicle replacements all the way up to building replacements, building upgrades, renovations, all of those things, because I think that there's a larger conversation that has to be had not only about the police department needing a new facility, but what it's going to look like 3 to 5 years for each of our fire departments, for the different apparatuses, for police cruisers, and so on and so forth. So I think the larger infrastructure strategic plan is necessary, so that as a city that does have some budget constraints, we are doing what's best for the taxpayers, but providing each of our departments with the necessary equipment and facilities to make them feel valued, but also do their job properly and safely.
Thank you, Darrell. So it's revisiting that marketing piece and outreach piece that we talked about a little bit on Saturday. And it sounds like you're dovetailing again and agreeing with the facilities piece and replacement of equipment piece that we've heard as well. So this is to be some kind of do it now is definitely, I'm hearing that again and again. Who is next? Who else? Who's at that next?
Looks like Grant has his hand up, Paul.
Okay, Grant. Yes, Grant?
You're muted.
muted. Oh, there he is.
There we go.
All right.
We're not,
So just a few things that I wanted to stress is that one of the biggest concerns as far as the police department that I have to kind of reiterate is just the amount of overtimes that police officers are having to do right now. I just want to make sure that we really look out for their well-being as far as you know, their mental health, and just making sure that they're not being overwhelmed, because they're already probably doing one of the most stressful jobs in the community. And I think just we want to make sure not to overbear them with the job that they have, because it is a tough one. Just listening in last night on the meeting, I think Mr. Daly said that there were also Chief Daly said that there were 2 homicides this past month, which is also kind of a concern. I want to make sure that we are trying to make sure that we're keeping the city as safe as possible, in the sense that we're trying to maybe prevent crime. I don't know what the best way to go about that is, but it's definitely something I think we should at least address and maybe discuss more on a broader scale. But those are just my 2 concerns as far as police department. To do with like fire safety, it was definitely concerning hearing in the meeting the other night, the blizzard and the ability for trucks to get in and out. Obviously that's not a everyday concern, but it's something to be talked about. And just if there's any more things that are concerning to the police, the fire stations, as far as like difficulties in getting out. I think they said the traffic was a concern sometimes from schools in the morning. So that's something else that we could probably address. And I don't know if this is, you know, too far out of bounds, but I think that maybe reaching out to communities, to the community to help out wouldn't be a bad idea, in the sense that, you know, the fire departments are going out and going to calls during a blizzard or a storm, or, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me why they can't, we can't do some type of recruiting, in the sense that why can't people dedicate their free time to go and help, just to make sure that the trucks can get out? Like, you know, it doesn't make sense to me that they're going out and doing a call and people can't hang around the department and just say, we don't mind staying here for the night just to shovel out, you know, the vehicles, or to make sure that they're able to get out. Same with the schools. Like, maybe we look to try and find crossing guards or traffic helpers that, you know, aren't necessarily paid employees, but somebody who are just kind of looking to help out the community. So just some thoughts I had, but overall I feel like the public safety in town is pretty good. It's just, like you said, what do we want to target on and make changes on in the now, kind of. So that's all I had. Thank you.
okay. So
Hey,
Grant,
Paul, if you don't, yeah, go ahead, Paul, sorry.
no, so Grant, the only thing, just the now action, I guess, the now resource, the now thing that you would suggest we do, it seems to be getting more community involvement is kind of what I heard in some form or fashion. And also recruitment, I guess, if that's the way you're going to be addressing the OT issues. Is that a summation of the 2 things that you're arguing for, that we spend some time and resources now on?
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely the recruiting piece. I feel like the most important thing is we want to have well-staffed public safety, because like I said, my biggest concern is I just want to make sure that the mental health of the police department and fire department are at a good place, because it probably, those are the most difficult jobs. The stuff that they see on a every once in a while basis is something that they need to have the time to like process through and make sure that they're processing correctly, and just want to make sure that we're giving them all that we can.
All right, excellent. Just wanted to make sure, because when I heard the OTPs on, after that, I heard pretty much it's all about making sure we have enough people so we don't have the working OT, is what I thought I heard. Okay. It's who was it that, yes.
Well, thank you very much. I like a lot of ideas today, and everybody has something good to say, so that's good. So first, of course, when it comes to fire department, I think we cannot ignore the fire study and its recommendation. And I also feel we do need some kind of uniformity in our fire department, and that'll be helpful for day-to-day procedure and for our public safety as well. One need that I was looking at was something called Lucas. It's a CPR system that was being demanded by various fire departments. So that's something on my radar that I know about, Lucas, and that's a CPR system. When it's come to our Norwich PD, there's no doubt they are trying their best, with the limited resources that they have. And maybe it's a time we can look into their needs and elevate their how we can help them to gain that manpower that they're looking for. Also, I did see a nice Facebook post, very attractive post for hiring an officer. So that's a very good thing that I see that they're trying to make packages more attractive so people can apply for these positions. But I do feel we probably need to invest more into technology to make their lives easier and to provide services to our citizens. Because let's say if there's a accident, sometime it takes a week to just get a report, which probably we need it for an insurance company and all that. So I don't know if we can make that process a little more better by investing in technology. So these kinds of services are, people can access them easily, and they don't have to go through hoops. And my other important piece that I want is we do need more cameras around the town, and especially the plate readers, which we don't have at city entrances and exits, because whenever there's a crime, people are either out of our city or they will be leaving the city after committing the crime. And it will be really helpful for our PD to produce better results if they have something like that to combat the crime. So, these are a few of my recollections, but of course our public safety committee members they have more knowledge. So, and I think they have spoke a lot on different issues. But these are a few things: plate readers, cameras, put more resources, invest in technology, work on the fire study recommendation, create more uniformity in our fire department, and Lucas, the CPR system. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. So just one quick question. So it sounded like you had some very specific pieces of technology that you were referencing that you think of as now moments. Is it really just those very specific ones that you see as now, or is it just other things in addition to those that just would be any kind of technology that you're suggesting we add whatever the department feels is important?
I'll say, if we can make things more user friendly on our people, because, as a resident, I don't know what PD has to go through, what struggles they have to go through. What I really care, if I don't have any understanding, of insight how things happen. And I really just want, if something happened, I just need my report so I can give it to the insurance company. So basically, how we can provide better services to our residents. And one thing basically get attached to another, because this will also help creating a better perception as well, that we are on top of things as a city, as a PD, and I think it will give more positive outlook as well. So I'm sure, Chief Daly can see, what really they need to make it work faster, or how we can be more efficient providing these kind of services to our residents. But these are few of my things. Of course, plate readers were one of the thing, and I had a little discussion as well with Chief that we don't have it, and that could be the budgetary constrained item. I don't know how expensive they are, but we should definitely look into it. So people who are robbing the stores or committing crimes, they don't think they can never be chased. So we can, if we produce more results in short time, we will gain more confidence that we are, if something happens, people get caught.
Okay, and I think so. You're listing some things that sound like we need to do something now with technology and with things that people would actually see direct benefit from, both the police as well as the population, from the extra bit of technology that we do spend. So
yes, thank you.
All right. Did every member of the council get a chance to weigh in, or I think we have, correct?
Yes, Paul, all council. I have a couple of things I want to put on the table, if I may now.
Yeah, that's why I was waiting to have everyone from the council. Yeah.
These are ongoing issues at this point. So these are kind of, where are we now? And some of them we're addressing, and they are difficult. One is the increase in gun violence. We've seen a rash of shootings and attempted shootings and murders, mostly committed with weapons. So we tried to address that early on with ARP money in the last go round, and we've been using that for that. The second one, and this relates with Tara's department, is the ongoing opioid crisis, actually exacerbated somewhat by the COVID-19 situation. But I don't think the trend is good on that. Now, that's part an enforcement, public safety, police responsibility, but it's also on human services for counseling, referrals, things of that nature. So they integrate with that. So with that, it's just a general violence in society that's reflected, unfortunately, also in Norwich, and that's not necessarily just gun violence, but just general situations. We see it in our schools. We read about it and talk about issues in our middle school. We've had numerous calls of service to some of our middle schools to the police department. And when you think about that, these are 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and we have to call the police to adjudicate the issue. That's a a tough situation. Now, the schools are trying to address that with the SRO program, which we're going to work on with the police department and so on. And finally, quality of life issues. That's speeding, disturbing the peace, all those type of issues. Then we get into blight, littering, those type of issues too. So there's a whole bunch of things that will help us in day-to-day living, help us recruit more residents, because residents obviously want to be safe. They want to have a clean environment. They want to have good schools. So I just threw those out.
Okay. So John, you pretty much listed things that we're facing now and things that we're doing to address it now and near what we're actually doing. Was there anything that we're not doing that you would suggest would be in the next 12 months we should add? Or I always think of add as people always think of it as like we're not doing anything and we're going to add this thing. Sometimes it actually looks two different ways. It's we do something just more. We're doing it, but we need to do a lot more. To me, that's an add just as much as if we weren't doing anything and we start doing something. And sometimes an add looks different completely. It's we're doing something that we should stop doing or do a whole lot less of it. And that, because we do less of that, it actually improves the outcome that we're looking for. So if I phrase it up that way, as is there anything that we're either doing that we should pull back on the reins just a little bit and do it a little bit less, or stop doing it altogether, and something that we're doing that we should do a lot more of and we're not doing enough of it? Well,
I would like to ask Tara to comment on the opioid situation. Obviously, we address it from the legal standpoint in drug dealers, and we've been fairly successful with that. But the other side of it, the human services side, if Tara can briefly comment on our approach to that issue from a human services side.
As a department, on the youth and family side, we have a lot of programs, educational opportunities for youth, working with the schools. On the adult side, we don't have a huge role as a department other than being sure that people are aware of Reliance Health and SCAD and other resources in the community that do deal with addiction issues. So that's really our role, is getting those referrals and getting those service connections for adults.
Tara, so if I ask you, when it comes to what we're doing for the children, obviously, and the adults, you decide. You describe kind of what our roles are, what we're doing now. If I were to ask you, what could we or should we, in your mind, add to that now in the near term? What could we do, either more of what we're doing, or pull back a little bit on processes that are not producing great results, or taking energy and effort that we could otherwise spend on things we should add to? If I were to ask you the question in that way, how would you reconfigure the resources you have, if it was in your command to do that, to improve the outcomes that you're looking to produce? Would you do anything different?
So I can say, I think, and this speaks to, I listened in on Saturday's session and heard it again tonight, the general consensus about how we market things and promote things in the community, that spills into to outreach opportunities and engagement that way as well. So, just having better ways to reach the community in a unified fashion. So it's about how do we better promote what we have?
Okay, so that would be an ad. We would do something different in the way that we make the services that you can provide known to people who could benefit from it. Because right now, some people do know, but there might be a lot of things that you can do, and maybe earlier, because it seems like anything that when I speak with individuals who do what you do, it's all about the earlier the intervention, the better the outcome. So how do we get a message out to the population that can benefit from what you can provide sooner? So talk about a now moment. It's like the sooner we can get information in the hands of the people who need it, the more likely it is that they get the help they need and they don't become an issue that the police later have to take care of. So, so you're arguing for better way to market, communicate something, the services that you have.
Yeah, and kudos to the police department for working, well with community outreach and really trying to help people and connect them to resources to treat their addiction rather than just criminalizing it from the start.
Cool. So this could be, again, it sounds like an ad, but it's really not. It's a more, is the way that you work with in conjunction with the police department. Are there additional ways that you can work even more with the police department that you could see doing? Is there any additional stuff, as long as it's moving in a good direction with those two? Is there anything you would add?
So I mean, there's always a possibility. I'm gonna add in here that I'm fairly new to my position, so I'm still learning the lay of the land on a lot of areas.
Okay.
So
that's an unfair question in a way, but maybe it's just to discover where there might be some opportunities for even greater collaboration. It's great that you guys are working together as a team, and it seems like when that happens, there's always opportunities that surface to work even more and more collaboratively. So so marketing and working together, those are the two that you have. Is there anything other than that, some service, some thing that from, you're new to us, that means you came from elsewhere? Is there something that you learned elsewhere that was very successful there, or that just from your knowledge of the profession that Norwich should be considering to do, that they're now not doing, or not doing as much as they could?
I mean, specific to the opioid crisis,
anything.
I will throw in, while we're talking about this, Youth and Family Services is facilitating an opioid crisis discussion, specifically about how fentanyl is ending up in things like marijuana, and youth are accessing it. And so that panel discussion is happening right now. So that's exciting. I'm going to throw that in there. I mean, so if I'm going to comment on public safety and human services in general, I think, it goes back to human services is all about quality of life in a number of areas. And, Grant mentioned crime prevention, right? Well, the basis of that is socioeconomic development and inclusion, and how are we dealing with folks in the social context from the very start. So I think we do a great job with our youth and family and our rec programs, really trying to address root things. Again, I'm new, so I don't know fully, but I feel like adult services is sometimes kind of not looked as favorable upon. And adult services is just as important. We're really about economic empowerment for the adults. And when you've got healthy adults, you've got a healthier household and a healthier children, and we're breaking cycles and we're raising up the next great generation.
Great. So what one thing, if to that, because all those sound like very, very hard to argue against kind of goals, there's no question. It's almost like your mission and vision and purpose. But what one thing, and again, you're new, so maybe you don't know one thing that we're not doing that we could, but it sounds like you're working really well with a lot of the different departments. Is there one thing just in your early look that you would say, well, I know one thing we did elsewhere that I don't know that we're doing it here, but if we're not, we should. What would that be? For the adult piece, go there.
So as it relates to public safety here, I really don't have anything other than, our marketing and our communication. I mean, that's the one thing that I've identified early on, is that uniform message. Like, we don't have a graphic standards, like there's not a consistent messaging across departments, let alone programs in a department. So.
Very good. Okay. That's a little additional piece to the marketing and communication piece that would be useful in this discussion. Very good. Anyone else want to comment on this public safety arena then? Or
do we want to give the
again?
chief? Do you want to give the two chiefs a chance to comment?
Yep.
Chief Montoya.
Hey, good evening. I'll comment first because I think I might be a little more brief than Chief Daly will be. I had taken some notes. So just for everyone's understanding, I think most people know this, but just to kind of start off of where we are in terms of public safety and some concerns and ideas I would have. So currently in the fire marshal's office, there are 3 deputy fire marshals responsible for fire investigation, code inspection, building inspection, and all that. We being the fire department, have asked for a number of years to up that staffing level. So where we are now is 3. Where would I like to be? What do we need to do there? Increase the staffing there. I'd like to see it ideally, again, dream world, budgetary things out of the picture, with an additional deputy fire marshal, which is a individual fully certified in investigation and inspection, code inspection. 1 additional there, and I would also like to see an additional code inspector, just to help out. We have a number, and I don't want to throw numbers out there without being accurate, but the numbers in the hundreds of occupancies that are currently past due inspection. It's not just unique to Norwich, it's across the state. We're not the only fire department who has a short-staffed fire marshal's office, but we can certainly try to do something about that. So that would be one thing, that an additional code inspector and an additional deputy fire marshal would certainly help with, especially with the projects going on. Phase 3 of Panema, some other projected projects in Laurel Hill, and the growth there. So I think that's key. I think it's key to public safety, not on the side that's highly visible, but when we have the code inspectors and the guys out there doing their job, they achieve that safety before it becomes a media grab. They make sure that everything's safe for the occupants, without the spectacular media stuff that the firefighters get when they make a rescue or something like that. So it's a kind of behind the scenes critical role for public safety that we could certainly improve upon with staffing. So some of the notes I'd taken from some of the other comments. So I'll just go in the order that people spoke. Alderman DeLucia mentioned the apparatus replacement and the numbers of the apparatus that the City of Norwich Fire Service has. And I agree with him. If you took an outsider or you looked at these numbers, just from a population and a square mileage standpoint, we certainly have more apparatus than we need. There is a consideration there because we have 6 departments. So there are things that can be done there. And I think the only thing I would point to there is that The city has a fantastic fleet maintenance department, and director of fleet maintenance and public works are probably critical to be at the table when those discussions are had on what apparatus can be eliminated without really impacting anything to public safety or to city needs. This one came up from a few comments about recruitment and retention, and how do we diversify and how do we maintain that. This again, we're not talking that we are taking into consideration budgetary constraints, but in the dream world, I've been with the city for 30 years. I started as an entry-level firefighter. The city of Norwich has never been, nor do I ever foresee it being, the highest paying municipality across the state, but it also has never been the lowest. But what attracted me and attracted many of my peers and many of my colleagues and other city employees was the benefit package. And that benefit package over the years has diminished. And I think Chief Daly could probably speak better to it than I can, because he's felt that more than I have. The turnover of people that, for lack of a better term, use Norwich as a stepping stone. You know, they'll get hired, they'll go to the academy, they'll get certified, whether it's police or fire, and then they'll move on to another department. So yeah, again, dream world situation. I don't expect us to be the highest paying city. I don't expect us to have the best package of benefits out there for all of our employees, but I do think we can make some improvements and stop going backwards on some areas that hurt us in long-term retention and even short-term recruitment.
Chief Montoya, do you have some specific, and you don't have to do this evening and right now, but do you have some specific things that the council should consider doing now, near term, that would be small or maybe not so small incremental increases in that benefit package that would make a difference in your mind to your retention? I mean, again, you don't have to name them, but have you thought through what are some of the ones that you would alter, change, or request to be considered?
Yeah, I've thought through some of them, and good, bad, or indifferent. We just settled a fire contract this past year, so we wouldn't be able to make any near-term changes anyway. But there are always considerations and things that we need to put in mind as the council reviews contracts and as the city manager and I negotiate contracts and other department heads on really what we're doing big picture-wise long-term.
Got it. And the other thing was, in terms of actual pieces of equipment, you addressed that as well. Do you also have kind of a list of the ones that you believe, are that you could recommend? Again, if you had to the council as to what would be the levels of our fleet that we should have and which ones we should consider adding to the fleet? Have you considered that?
Yes, I have thought about that.
Okay, because I think that would be helpful. Again, don't have to present them now, but I think that would be useful as an addendum after for you to present that. Okay.
Yes, sir. And then moving on to a comment made by Alderwoman Gould about the communications and the project there. A critical role in that, and this has been discussed in the chief's meetings with the city manager and with others, is that we're going to have this, this amazing CAD system that's going to bring us into the modern era. We're going to have some amazing hardware in the fire apparatus and on our hips and portable radios. But what we really need to full use of that and to amplify the safety aspects that's going to provide us is the staffing in the dispatch center. The staffing in the dispatch center has been a challenge for them. We have some dedicated and talented people in there, but it's a challenging environment in an emergency dispatch center. And when they're taking care of police and fire, sometimes short-staffed. If you have the wrong incidents compiled upon each other, you're putting yourself in a dangerous situation, both for the law enforcement officers and the firefighters. So I think the staffing is a big consideration, and that is something that I think you might have some ARP opportunities or some other opportunities for moving on that front. But again, that goes back to the comment of the the police department, and haven't been paid to advocate for him, but I would I would put a new police department on a top priority for the city of Norwich. They have outgrown that facility. They are doing a job nowadays that I would never want. My father was law enforcement for 3+ decades, and yeah, they need to have the right facilities for their men and women, for their dispatch center. You know, even if the dispatch center didn't stay in a new police department, but that needs to be a consideration, a high priority for the city.
So you're arguing for a now moment to actually help the police department with its facility, rather than spending those resources on the fire department. It's kind of
Well,
cool.
in turn, as a combined dispatch center, it does help us.
Helps you both. Helps you both. All right. So it wasn't totally selfless.
The next comment I have was there was a comment about the Lucas devices, and we had done that, and the city manager was very helpful in us doing that. But because of the radio project, we bumped it from this round of ARP funding to the next round. So the Lucas devices are, if you're not familiar with them, are a very valuable EMS tool. One of the departments in the city does have it, but the others don't. So we're trying to get them for the rest of us. And I believe that we're good to go with those on the next round of funding. So we have made that comment, was pretty good there. I think the comment on the recruitment, back to recruitment and retention, the program. So Chief Ivers from the Antic Fire Department has for years run a program at Norwich Free Academy. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, took a couple of years off, and just recently had looked and communicated with NFA to try to do that. That was a fire service specific program. It's not really a junior or a cadet program. It's a program going into the schools for students that are interested in the fire departments or the fire service as a career. And they go around, they do 2 weeks, 2 visits. It's a 12-week period, 2 visits to each of the firehouses, the fire departments, and it's a good program. I don't think that this cycle, we had hoped to get it off the ground again, but we weren't able to with NFA. And again, Chief Ivers would be our point man on that. I don't know that recruitment, I'm just not familiar with it. I can't speak to the recruitment on the volunteer side. I know for us, we have a recruitment and retention and diversity team that goes out and does career fairs. They go to school, they visit schools. They go wherever they're requested, as long as we have the money for it. And they're pretty well received when they do their public presentations. They'll go down to the park, down to the gazebo at Brown Park, and set up a table when there are public events down there sometimes. So we do our best. I know that Alderwoman Berto made a comment about females in leadership and females in the department. And it's, I'll tread a very fine line here. It's very difficult in the public safety because you have to look at all the standards for the position, again, whether it be law enforcement or firefighter, and rule out kind of anything. It's kind of like a blind test, because to use this analogy, in a smoke-filled room, it doesn't matter who's pulling me out as long as they're capable of pulling me out. And so the testing process reflects that. And we have 2 female firefighters now, which one of them has been there quite some time. She's one of our senior firefighters, and the other one's just been on the job a few years. So we do our best with what we have citywide. I absolutely agree that all departments, not just the fire department, but I think all of us could be a little more diversified to reflect our community. Norwich is a very diverse community, and I'll speak to my department. We don't really reflect that as well as we could. We're trying. We work with a lot of organizations, but certainly something to improve upon. So that's for that. Let's see if I missed any notes before I move on. Yeah, so I guess to summarize it, again, where we are now with the staffing, what I'd like to see, what I think is really important for the city in terms of public safety for our residents, our employees and visitors, is increasing the staffing in the fire marshal's office by, again, ideally, additional deputy fire marshal as well as a code inspector. And I would imagine that Deanna would also have the same request for the building department. The building inspectors and the fire marshals work very closely together. A lot of stuff overlaps. A lot of stuff is ours that they help us with. A lot of stuff is theirs that we help them with. But the city could certainly use growth in both departments. So thank you.
Chief, just out of curiosity, with the coding specialist and those other positions that you, some of them you listed, is there any let's say collaboration between neighboring towns that takes place in that search and could utilize those resources, or is that not a good idea?
I can speak to that. I can speak to that briefly, I guess, if you want me to, Chief. But firstly, for building officials, there's a shortage in the state of Connecticut, and we are very, very constantly competing with other communities and being competitive to try to get building officials here. There are sign-in bonuses being given in communities in Connecticut now. We think that our pay is fairly competitive, not as high possibly as it should be, but it's just not enough building officials coming up. There's a lot retiring, and they weren't offering the test for a couple of years, and partially because of COVID. So we're behind. So we are working on creating job descriptions for lower positions for inspectors and people who can get trained to become building officials. So we really are looking at the resources that we have internally, staff that might want to learn things and move them up, as well as outsourcing. And we temporarily have a contractor that we're using that's a code official to help us. But we can't work with other communities because they're short, and no one, I mean, I sent an email, just so everyone knows here, to every building official in the state of Connecticut asking if he's interested in working, him or her interested in working. I got a response from about 4 of them who all said we're overworked and exhausted or retiring. So that's what we got. So, we've talked to Kathy Austin and others about training programs that can be started specifically for code officials.
Got it.
Our tech schools.
Well, it doesn't sound like you're doing something new by just adding a layer of inspectors, one rung below, to at least get some of the work accomplished. So that's a new, and you might want to think about doing more of that perhaps. And that would be an add-on right there. So that's a do now and do more of.
And I think to the comments of sharing resources, if you would, regionally. Regionalization is kind of a bad word in Connecticut, especially in the fire service. I think that regionally, there is some value in having that conversation, but I think it would hurt Norwich more than help us.
Okay.
Because as crazy as this may sound, as Deanna and I both just stated how short-staffed we are and we're hurting, we're actually stronger. We're actually one of the stronger groups in the area, and we would be called upon way more than we would be called in for help.
Gotcha.
Similar to the fire service.
Got it. So Chief Daly, you're up at bat.
All right, can everybody hear me fine?
Yes.
All right. I'll try to go fast, respectful of everyone's time. I'm just going to hit the notes. The mayor spoke in community relations. We have done very, very well that last few years. We came through the George Floyd protest very well, but we could do a better job. There's a large Asian community in Norwich we're not making inroads on. We're struggling with. We do not represent, our department does not represent the city's diversity, and that's a goal we're trying to get to. We're struggling with COVID impacts and the protest impacts with the officers, and that continues to be an issue. The locker example is real. Actually, the female officer we just hired, Officer Jordan Newt, does not have a locker because we've outgrown the female locker facility in the station. We do look like facility is important. I'm glad to hear everyone, including Chief Montoya. Chief, your check will be in the mail. The facilities needs are real. We're up against a lot of things. You heard about even the dispatch. We want to increase dispatch staffing. The room's too small to increase staffing. The fire study says very highly should be a lead dispatcher. I fully agree. You don't have an office to put this person in. I don't know if they're expected to work out of their car. It's department-wise, the comments made were healthy. we're not overly healthy right now. There's a tremendous amount of pressure on law enforcement, and the officers are starting to show cracking under the pressure. We're brought on about wellness, and that's something we're struggling with, the mental health of the officers. The city's doing everything we can, but it's been 2 years of pressure due to racial issues, COVID, and then just the increasing violent crime, and the officers are starting to show the cracks at the edges. Alderman DeLucia, training, recruitment, and retention. Again, I should probably tell everyone what my 3 goals would be right now if I had to do now moments. And they were all hit by somebody, so everybody pays attention. First of all, it's gun violence. I think the city manager brought that up. That needs to be addressed right now. We had 23 shooting incidents last year, and we had 2 homicides in a month this year. That's unheard of for Norwich. That needs to be addressed right now. Getting guns off the street, that's a nationwide problem, but it's hitting Norwich right now more than the surrounding towns. So that's a demotivator for people to come here. Recruitment, retention, wellness, and contract negotiations, benefits was mentioned. Making our benefit package more competitive, I think, is going to be something. Our contract is coming up in 2023, so I think we need to look at that. Actively recruit on a city-wide basis. The fire department's having trouble getting firefighters. We're having trouble getting police officers. We need to get that going. And the facility. This really is a generational moment to steal the mayor's thing. I think there's some monies out there that we can capture, and I think there's some support in the community right now. So I think if we're ever going to put this police facility need away, this is the year to do it. Let's see, Alderman Berto. We do, yes, I'm proud to have the female officers. I promoted the second female supervisor in the department. I'm hoping to promote another one sometime this year. And we'll have them move into leadership roles. I've also promoted 2 officers of color, and we're going to continue those efforts to be role models for the citizens. Cameras and radios, the officers' equipment is actually standard for the, while it's not the absolute best, it's more than serviceable, and what people throughout the county are using. This kudos to the previous councils. That's been addressed. Our radio system before was tin cans, strings, and now we have a state-of-the-art radio system that the fire department will soon be coming out to. Getting time to move along. Alderman Wilson, community engagement, we do very well at that, but unfortunately, as our staffing dwindles, our engagement efforts are going to suffer, and that's a major concern to us. We are in the high schools. We just started a law enforcement club with NFA this year. We're hoping to do a Citizens Police Academy later to do it. We are in the college. We just started a relationship with Eastern, helping out their law enforcement majors. We saw tap some CDBG funding to the Citizens Police Academy. Infrastructure, the vehicles are good. The council has been pretty good about funding us, but the building obviously is a main concern. Alderman Newendorf, wellness, you hit it on the head. I'm very concerned about the wellness, the mental health of the officers. They are overworked. The pay is adequate. The benefits could be better. We've lost benefits from what we had before. Crime we do try to prevent right now, but unfortunately, as our staffing goes down, we end up working in more of a response mode, which is not ideal. Alderman Singh, Facebook recruitment, the severe Facebook ad you spoke of, what 25 people reached out and contacted us. So that is positive. We're really going to flip our message. We're going to look into radio ads on the up and down Eastern Connecticut, from the Groton radio station to the Ledger, to Willimantic to Putnam, getting ourselves out on the radio. We're also going to kick around to see if we can get a television ad, trying to get out there and increase our social media presence. The problem is this is probably a citywide issue. I'd like to, and almost if we could have like a social media coordinator just to get the messaging out there to all city departments, what we're doing. All city agencies at every minute is doing something good. And a lot of times we don't have the time to quick send a tweet or post it. And I think we could do a better job of selling ourselves if we had like a media relations person. It's very, very tough for the departments themselves to do it. And then we can address the consistency. We do have technology issues, but they've been solved, a lot of them, over the last 5 years. I think we've really moved the ball on that. The report delay that Alderman Singh spoke of, for motor vehicle accidents. We are working with that, the new CAT RMS system that we just signed a contract and the council voted unanimously for. The RMS is records management system, and that will hopefully make the reporting a little more smooth and less clunky than the system we have now, and make it easier to interface with reports online or policereports.com and to help our citizens. We do struggle with that. We often feel that our delay in reporting is unfortunately sometimes re-victimizing the victim, and we don't like to do that. We want to get people out there because sometimes without a police report, you can't get a rental car. We understand that. So we're working on that. License plate readers and cameras. I submitted a budget proposal this year for fixed license plate readers and to explain our 29 cameras to approximately 60 cameras to do it. So that's a now type situation that we can have use perhaps the ARP money for. And we are trying to help the residents as much as we can, even with our staffing challenges. The city manager brought up gun violence. Obviously, he gets the reports. I keep him in the loop of what's going on in the city. The opioid crisis, especially fentanyl, is a major concern. I haven't seen the numbers yet on fentanyl overdose deaths, but your citizens are dying on a daily basis, not daily basis, but weekly basis, more than they should. And that's something we have to go from the schools. You're seeing the overdoses at school levels. You're going to have to start at making that almost like treat it like a public health emergency, and have that approach to it. And then the quality of life. If you ask people what's wrong with Norwich, 3/4 of your citizens will say there's too much speeding going on. Not really aware that there's a tremendous gun violence problem because that's somebody else's issue. But we are cognizant of speeding. We do have the quality of life, the broken windows theory, and so we are trying to work with that. So hopefully I got that. Some of the things we are looking at right now, we are working with social workers. That might be a vision down the future to have a social worker either that reports to Tara based at the police department in the Stonington model or the Groton model, which they're going to right now, is they're hiring their own social worker. That was included in the police accountability bill. We have social workers, we have social worker interns right now, and we have mental health workers, CIT, Southeastern mental health workers that also ride with us. But that may expand as people are trying to reimagine police. I threw a lot at you, but you threw a lot at me. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Hey, Patrick, it's Kevin Brown. I've been doing a lot of typing, not a lot of talking tonight. I just want to offer to you one avenue, and not like it's the permanent approach or necessarily even the sufficient approach, but I used to work with an organization called Veterans and First Responders Healthcare, and they are a culturally competent organization that provides behavioral health care to soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, veterans, police, and fire. They have a presence, albeit it's virtual. They have a presence up at the Easter Seals at 24 Stott Avenue. And that presence comes in the form of a private room with a portal where anybody from that population that I just described can go in that room, log in, and talk face-to-face, again, virtually, to a behavioral health counselor. And as they elect to, can continue that program for a period of, I believe, 8 to 16 sessions or weeks. So anyway, the folks up there at Stott Avenue can plug you in if you want to send somebody up there and just see if it's even worth your while. I just wanted to offer that resource.
No, Kevin, thank you for that. We're trying to do everything we can with our employee assistance program. And, we do have our some clinicians that we work with, and the more help, the merrier. But I've known these officers. I've been there 28 years. So there's one other person we got hired the same day. The rest of us, I've been there for their whole careers, and I can see it in their faces. The pressure is starting to wear on them, and I'm very, very concerned for their health and well-being. We are a family, and this is your police department, and I'm concerned. I appreciate your offer, and I'll be getting a hold of you offline so I can get the info.
Very good, thanks.
Any questions for the chief? All right. Well, thank you, Chief Daly. You did throw a lot out there, and it does sound as though you had a couple of new things that you were definitely wanting to do now. And Chief Montoya will be expecting the check in the mail for the support that he gave you so that you can get your resources as well. So that's a good thing that you both are on the same page about facilities that improvement. And it seems like you have the support of the council to make sure that that's something that is at least on the consider list for sure. Strong consider list. If you had to look at your list, other than that, the number one thing that you would rank order as one that you absolutely want, other than the facility itself, is there another number one for you that is a resource that you would absolutely want the council to be considering as an add-on, a now? Is there
I mean, I'd like to increase the detective division to address the gun violence. I think gun violence, like I said, our citizens are getting killed. That's our mission. Our core mission is public safety. When citizens are dying, we're not doing our core mission. But that would be the request, like they're much like the building inspectors, but just like the issues they're facing, we can't find people to be police officers. So first, unfortunately, it's a cascading approach. It's a cascading problem, and it's a cascading solve. I've got to solve the recruitment, the hiring, and the onboarding before I can start expanding. So it's like a crawl, walk, run type scenario. But we're up for it. I just don't want, I wish I could wave the magic wand and say, give me 2 more detectives, which I desperately need, but I can't take them off the streets because then, the quality of life is a challenge. So I wish I had a better answer for you, sir, but I don't, because it's right now the workforce is just handcuffing us, no pun intended.
Yeah, understand. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, did you want to take John, I know that we're talking about public safety first. The other 2 things that you wanted to discuss were, like you said, they kind of dovetail, like human services and whatnot. Is it a separate thing that we want to go to for that, as well as finance, the same kind of thing? We're going to take a little special moment for each one of those, or did I get the wrong?
I think we'll do Public Works next, because there's lots of issues with Public Works projects, quality of life issues.
Okay.
Public Works also manages our park system, so take that separate, and then anything in human services that Tara would like to say, like to hear, and finally we'll do a little summary of finance and hopefully get that done on a timely basis.
All right. So
you want to take a break?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if we have those 3 things. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? Does that sound?
Yeah.
All right, let's just take a 10-minute break and then come back and we'll do those 3. Well, stay on everyone. Stay on the web so that you don't leave and have to come back. And we can do that.
Hey, Paul or John, either one of you, please tell me again, what are the other 2 or 3?
So it is Public Works, Human Services, and Finance. Those are the 3. Thank you, Kevin, by the way, for again providing your rapid and wonderful typing skills to make sure that we're capturing it in a document that people can see.
Well, John said, I'm here for more than just typing. I'm here to absorb everything that's being said. So there's that too.
Yeah, there's that. But there's also, like you said, you have clarity of knowledge of the environment here.
Right.
That as you just did, there's some input that you can give that is relevant because you're familiar with the whole city of Norwich. So that's kind of a cool thing.
All good.
One of the things as the chief was talking that I don't know whether they do that here, and maybe John, if he's still here. John, are you? No, all right, is collaboration with the hospitals, because a lot of the bigger cities, they typically, the police department and especially the emergency rooms and whatnot is where the people, typically end up who have been involved in either gun violence or things of that nature. And there's a lot of ancillary community groups that provide services to people in the emergency room, family, additional family, that kind of members that can get some valuable assistance from other people in the community who provide that assistance.
Right.
So I know of a few organizations of that kind. Like for instance, where there is more gang-related violence, it's former gang members who basically provide guidance to people who end up in the ED with gunshot wounds, and instead of escalating the situation, they de-escalate, and they know how to do that because they were formerly in those situations. Kind of cool to see how that's done, actually. Very, very powerful.
Community approach. And Darrell?
Tracy's trying to get in the waiting room, so she just had got kicked off, so just letting you guys know.
Okay. Come on. All right, Tracy should be back.
Hey, Kevin, are you on?
Yes, sir.
If you could, please, if you send Chief Daly anything on the mental health providers up in the industrial park, if you could also forward that to me as well, please.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Paul, do you know what direction you're heading next? Which directorate?
Public
Okay.
work.
All right, thank
I
you.
gave it to you in the order in which we're going to go next, figuring you were creating slides. So Public Works is next, followed by Human Services, and then Finance.
Got it. Thank you.
Leftover Jack's. I treated for Jack's Pizza today for the office, and we have leftover pizza. I can't hear you, John.
Did you heat it up or is it cold pizza?
Cold pizza. I could have microwaved it, but I was just rushing. I thought I didn't want to miss coming back to the meeting, so I grabbed a piece of cold pizza. I know.
Trying to show you my cold sandwich, but it won't show up here in the harbor.
Oh. Yeah, so I bought pizza for the office today and donuts. So today was a good office day for food. Not good for dieting, but good for snacking.
We'll get that point. You're still in the office?
And I'm eating pizza, cold pizza.
Wow, that's dedicated.
Always.
Okay, oh, jumpers and.
Peter, when I'm not here, I'm thinking about work anyways. You know that.
The curse for the dedicated.
Pretty much, I think everybody on the phone is in that same, it is that same tunnel for sure. Work is a very important part of our lives and it matters to us. So that's a good thing.
But I have to get home to see some Olympics tonight. There's got to be something good happening tonight on the Olympics.
Let's hope.
I know. Got to be something. I think it's snowboarding or something. I think Sean, whatever. Is it Sean?
Yeah, it's his last one.
This is it for him. That's right. His,
no spoiler alerts. Anybody who's still watching it.
No, I've been staying up till 1 in the morning this whole week watching the Olympics because all the good stuff happens late.
I know. Why is that, right? I don't get what the
because they're 13 hours ahead of us.
Good Lord. Yeah.
And I want to watch it live.
Yeah. Oh, that's why. Yep. Okay, I think if we should be pretty much all back at this point, if not sometime real soon. So why don't we reconvene and keep on moving? Does that sound fair? Okay. All right. So next up is Public Works. So again, we'll start. Mr. Mayor, you led us off the last session. So if maybe you want to just lead us off again. You did a good job pointing us in the right direction. So the burden, not a burden, but the burden on you to help us get started and moving in the right direction again. So in Public Works, again, thinking through where are we now and where do we want to go? What are some issues, opportunities, areas of concern that we need to address, that we need to do something about now? So focus on the ones that are the most important, the ones where resources are. I know we spent a fair amount of time talking about things that we're actually doing in the last session, which we had to do. I think it's a good thing to do that, but not just where we're already doing things for that, but also more importantly, where is it that you see our new opportunity to either stop doing some things and redirect money in other directions, or add a little bit more, or start something that we've not yet done that we do need to address. Again, thinking through that, maybe in the COVID period, some things stalled or some things were put on the back burner that today we should put back on the front burner. What are some of those kind of things that you think are definitely what the council should consider doing now? As opposed to just what we're already doing. So if I could ask you, Mr. Mayor, to take it away.
Again, we're still in that generational moment because of the federal dollars that are expected to flow, but we have clearly stated needs that have really reared their ugly head, and that has a lot to do with the flooding that occurred throughout the city, the infrastructure improvements that have to take place, whether it's Backus Hospital down in Greenville, Norwich town proper. We really have, I think, a short window to address those. So it's defining what the new upgrade is, whether it's an enhanced retention pond up by the technical high school and how that impacts everything down the hill. on multiple fronts coming out of Mohegan Park. There's always going to be infrastructure being addressed, the large long-term projects like the sewer treatment plant and the containment system that goes with that, or a bridge project, another one coming online, or CSOs, but we need to really be aggressive, as I said earlier, in make sure that we're in line receiving those federal dollars, because that window's going to close in a couple of years and they'll go away again, as the case is. So we really need to really focus on that, keep talking about it, get all our resources lined up, whether it's the state delegation and or federal delegation. We're doing that in a longer protracted way with this business park development. Again, that's infrastructure, highway realignment and redesign up that way. But we have some immediate needs to protect private properties, those directly impacted very negatively, which was in essence a rain event. It wasn't even a river overflowing its banks. We can't lose sight of that. The iron's still hot on those issues. It's in people's minds. We were on a call with FEMA just yesterday, albeit it was a whole different discussion, but there is a lot more focus on this city right now, and we need to keep it there. And again, that could be enhanced. On Saturday, I talked about a marketing person for the city and making sure the message is, the narrative is strong, well-written, delivered consistently out front. That could assist us as we go forward with this kind of an approach. John can speak to some of the resources that might be brought to bear, whether they would qualify for direct funding to address that through FEMA, or we go through our delegation at the Washington level. They all seem to have this pot of funds to hand out right now. We've seen Congressman Courtney's list to some extent. We're benefiting by that back on dispatch issues with the police and fire, but we need to bring in those resources now. And also keep in mind that the public works departments probably took the most cuts over the last 6 years. Manpower, need to assess that. I mean, if you rebuild it, how do you maintain it? Whether it's the roads or anything else. But that's where I would start the discussion. It's a lot of work too, a lot of heavy lifting to make this a reality. It needs a team effort. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, good leadoff batter. So who wants to take next up? Joe, you I know took the next one because of the particular role, but did you want to also on this item also be the one that takes the next at bat?
Sure. I'm also the chair of the Public Works Committee. So
I didn't know that either. So now I do.
The issues that the mayor raised are all of the major issues that are on the top of the batting order, I guess is the way to say it. When we talk as a as a team in our public works meetings, public works, that particular committee goes beyond just public works as capital improvements. So looking at the city-owned roads, we've got some roads that are in tough shape. We're starting to get complaints from residents that roads are not repaved as often as we would like to, and they're starting to notice. Sidewalks are huge. We talked at public safety last night about traffic and speeding and stop signs and stoplights, and the other part of that, and Deanna knows much more about this than I do, and Patrick as well. But The idea of complete streets, because it's more than just vehicular traffic. It's the scooters, and it's the bicyclists, and it's the pedestrians. And we have a lot of streets where we're asking people to be more careful of pedestrians. We're putting up signage, but the idea of making streets more friendly for people that are not necessarily driving cars. So, I think those are the, in addition to what the mayor said, which are the more emergent, these are the things that are maybe second tier things that we've been talking about as a committee, that we need to address. And again, with the opportunity of having a good delegation in Hartford and a good delegation down in Washington, D.C. It's more than just the ARPA money. It's the other programs. So we talked about having a grant writer on Saturday. So, this would be, again, another opportunity for a grant writer to look at some of these issues for us. And then the last thing I would like to mention is, we do a lot with distressed properties. We've had a conversation about using the ARPA money for that as well, in terms of taking some of these distressed properties, neglected properties, abandoned properties that either the city owns or the city should temporarily own, and then putting a little money into them so that we can essentially flip them and get them back on the tax rolls. These are all things that we can do in the very short term to get the city moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Joe, so just thought, it sounds like, you said these are all things we could do. And clearly, with grant writers and with money that could flow in from all kinds of directions, they all could be done. But if you had to, rank order and say that if there's one that has to not be on the list because it was only money for, all but one, what would be the one that you would say that you would be okay? That you would suggest be the one that is put on the next year item list rather than this year in order to get the others done? What would be the one that you would, rather than making you say which one's number one, which one is of the list would you be willing to say, all right, I can consider making that a next year project rather than a this year, tomorrow rather than a now? Which one of those, if it was up to that?
So I don't know how exactly you want me to frame this. So I'll interpret what you just said as best I can. The right now, if you're asking me to pick one, I'm going to say it's the complete streets, because we're hearing a lot from residents about their inability to get from point A to point B unless they're in a car. Even the car is a challenge, but if you're not in a car, if you're a pedestrian, you're in some places, you're taking your life in your hands. And so because that's dealing with our current residents and their need, and I would say that the complete streets piece needs to be first, and that's dovetailed with improving the conditions of our roads overall. Yeah. The one that I could say could happen maybe in the next year, if I had to pick one, I would say it's that effort toward getting some of our distressed properties rehabilitated and back on a grand list.
Got it. That you did exactly what I wanted you to do. It's kind of like at some point, it would be great if all of those were in our now list, but it doesn't mean just because it's not now, but next year it will be done. But it might be that we have to pick. And it's nice to hear from the one who's actually creating that list. What's the now part of that list? And what's the, if I had to pick myself, I would pick these two absolutely now. And this one I could live with a tomorrow rather than a now. Exactly what I wanted you to do. Perfect.
So Paul, I appreciate you pushing Joe through that drill. I don't think I captured it correctly because I highlighted everything that he said. So either you help me understand, or Joe, please speak back up and tell me what was your number one of those three things.
Well, my number one is the complete streets piece, because we're talking about doing studies on we're on traffic flow and changing traffic patterns and so on and so forth. So you know, we need to take those studies and then we need to do something with them and resulting in complete streets. So that would be my do now number one.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. We also have the, you know, the actual words that we're going to be streaming this and saving it as a audio file. So we can always refer back to that, but good that we have the notes that are in line as well. So thank you, Kevin. All right, so let's go a little off pace. And Sarji, the last time you were kind of almost at the end of the batting or list. So why don't we ask you to come in now?
You calling me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so of course, public works, pretty much, you know, that's the face of Norwich, because what you see sells. And if you want to sell Norwich, it has to look nice. That means sidewalks needs to look nice, road needs to look nice, infrastructure needs to look nice. We cannot have our businesses flood down with the rain. So we need to address that. I agree with Peter that should be number one. And I do know we should be working on making our streets more bike friendly. You know, a lot of folks young age who wants to drive a bicycle, but they don't feel safe doing that. And we do have a lot of pedestrian crowd. And if we really want to promote that, you know, we should be doing more on our sidewalk thing. I know it's a very big city, and I'm sure Pat, or actually one time Mayor Nystrom was telling me the amount of miles of sidewalk we have in Norwich. So it's a lot of sidewalk, and I don't know if it's gonna be a realistic thing to address all of them in one shot. Maybe it has to be done in phases, but we have to make that plan to get that addressed. So long story short, of course, addressing the water issue, the sewer, and making our streets more bike friendly, having a bike lane or something like that. We should be working on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering when you were talking about bike friendly, whether you were talking about bike, you know, bike lanes, bike paths.
Bicycle.
Yeah, whether you actually had, I don't know if there are any in the city or not, or whether there's room to accommodate that and make them safe, but that's certainly, you could
Well,
begin.
Paul, we do have some good news on that. We did just receive a grant for West Townsend Street for about a half a mile of sidewalks from the Marriott east for about a half a mile. And then we've been approved for a large Safe Streets grant and bike path on New London Turnpike. And Deanna, how
you're stealing all
how
my
long is
thunder
that?
here.
Oh, you're going to do?
I was going to
New
say,
London
let Pat,
Turnpike?
I was going to say, let Pat tell you about it.
I was going to get to that at the end after everybody, you know, when I address everybody.
Okay.
Concerns.
I was brimming. I couldn't hold back, Pat. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Why don't you
What
continue
they say,
that?
right? Success is many fathers, but failure's an orphan. So, you know, when it comes to things that are actually coming to fruition, everyone wants to jump in and be a part of that. So that's good news to hear that that those things are actually happening. Thunder stolen or not, it was a good piece of news. No question.
Yeah, it's over $1.5 million worth of state money to do these projects.
We've actually, it's like 5 million if you take into account a couple other lots of projects that are also
Right
type projects.
That's true.
And I think we were one of the 17 towns that got it.
Wow.
So we really made it.
Very good. Okay, so thank you. And we'll actually be hearing more about that for sure. Darrell?
So for me, I think looking at some of the bigger projects that we have going on or coming down the pike is important. But also again, I believe kind of what Joe was saying about complete streets and things of that sort is important. The other big thing that I would want to put on the table, and it's again combining two major things, would be infrastructure. And when I look at that, it's looking at the city's infrastructure as a whole: roads, bridges, the cooperation with projects from NPU, as well as Norwich Public Works, that are going to not so much, it's more of the upgrade that it brings to the city. So allowing us the capacity to for our businesses and our residents to have the best of whatever those things are. So I think that's part of the infrastructure. And then the other part is the capital of making sure the equipment that we are providing our public works individuals is the best equipment to do the best work that they can. I think they do a lot of work citywide, and it's important that we continue to make sure that they have the proper tools. You know, I think as Mayor Nystrom alluded to, you know, they've taken some large hits as far as staffing. And, you know, as I think all of us are saying, you know, if we're talking about the marketing piece and whatnot of the city, it's also an onus on us as the council to make sure that we're giving the individuals that are going to make Norwich look beautiful, but also do the work, the hard nitty gritty work. We're giving them the tools to make sure the job is done properly and safely. So I think those two pieces have to continuously be looked at to make sure that we are in line as far as giving them the proper staff, equipment, but also looking at the strategic plan again of how the infrastructure of the city is tiered. And I think my last piece, which is kind of like a now and a continuum, and I think in the other categories, is a continuous effort of all of us, from the council, the city manager, public works, and all the other departments, looking at all the different dollars that are out there, both from the federal, state, private, all of the different levels of where we could possibly get funds to upgrade the city from that standpoint. Beautification, infrastructure, neighborhoods, all of those little things. I think when we take care of our infrastructure, I think it also attributes to helping with quality of life. So I think there are direct correlations to a lot of the things that we're talking about tonight. And a lot of that starts within that public works piece. You know, if we've got the right drainage in neighborhoods where there is a high density of individuals living, as we see in some of the areas of town, we want to make sure that those water flows and the roads and just all of the traffic patterns meet the need of not just the city, but also the neighborhood that it's in. So that's what I got.
Okay. Thank you. Stacy.
Hello. So I agree with everything that's been said, but I think the piece that's missing for the quality, all the quality of life issues that we've talked about, whether it's speeding, whether it's blight, is what is the onus of the residents and the business owners to keep their properties cleaned up? As the former chairman of the Public Works Committee, We have a tremendous public works crew. And they can go out and pick up the garbage on a city street. And an hour later, our residents are driving by and throwing out their coffee cup, their soda can, their nip bottles, their lunch bag. We need to do a better marketing of keeping our city clean. That it's everybody's responsibility, not just the councils, not just public works. It's everyone's responsibility. I drive around Norwich. I don't understand why people, whether they own the home that they live in, are renting, they're visiting, why their property has to look like, and excuse the euphemism, but like a bomb just went off in it. They have garbage floating around. Their old tires are sitting out in the side. They have construction debris. We need to do a better job getting them to keep their neighborhoods clean. We could go out and get all kinds of grants, state, federal, local, whatever. But if they don't buy into it, all of our work is for naught. And that's, Dangerous Buildings Board of Review has done a tremendous job with the properties that the cities own to get them back on the tax rolls, despite some of the challenges the properties may have. But we need to have a campaign to keep our city streets, sidewalks, and neighborhoods clean. And if our residents don't buy into it, we could spend $1 million a year cleaning up and beautifying. But if they're not going to stick with the program, then we're chasing our tail.
All right, so that goes into that marketing campaign, or that seems to be for a lot of different things we need to do is better communicate with our population, even if it's just to remind them that they should care about the communities they live in. Cool.
It's about changing the culture.
Right.
That, you want people to move here, you want businesses to come here. Our neighborhoods, our streets, our sidewalks have to look presentable to them. And if they're driving through a neighborhood to go look at a home that's for sale, and they're driving through and everybody's yard looks like, a terrible mess, they're going to say, forget it, I don't want to live in this neighborhood, or I don't want to live in this town. But Pat and his crew do a tremendous job, and they're very responsive. And, as many times as we've asked MPU to put in their newsletter about bulky pickup, we have people who just think that, oh, there's an empty lot at the end of the street, we'll just throw our old sofa there, our old mattress. We have to get people to care about our city.
Okay. Grant, what would you like to add to the conversation?
So hearing everything that's been said, I have just two things to add. So when we're talking about flooding, quality of streets, traffic pattern, there's one place that comes up to mind for me, and that is the bridge going across from Asylum Street over the Yannick River. That bridge has kind of been in rough shape for a little bit, and I feel like the best way we can kind of talk about this is targeting specific changes that we want to make. That has to do with flooding. That bridge probably takes a bit of wear and tear on it because of how high the water rises in that area. It also has been kind of banged up for a little bit, and the traffic pattern over there has changed recently with the stop signs being added. I think the stop signs have been really good at reducing the speed on that road, because typically people used to fly up and down that road, and now it's a nice kind of middle of the road stop, and then go again, which is very nice. But at the same time, because cars are stopping there, it becomes kind of problematic with that turn, because it is such a narrow bridge that I think if we were to redo it and maybe target some of these, you know, slight problems, it could be a nice little place to start on some of these projects. And then I just think Stacy's point needs to be emphasized and echoed throughout the community. Like, I remember just a few months ago, me and the mayor were out doing a cleanup with the soup kitchen, and the running joke of the day was him and John Blackburn, you know, bringing over a mattress from just behind the Dairy Queen area to the Surplus Unlimited area, and being the running joke that it's the catch of the day. You know, we can't have that in Norwich. We need to be living up to the nickname, and I think that's where that campaigning comes in, is that we need to emphasize Rose City as much as possible and make it well known that we are very much so a prideful community that wants to reflect our residents, in the sense that we're a beautiful place to live in a beautiful community. So those are just some of the things, but I think it just needs to be said again. Stacy's point really needs to be echoed throughout the whole community. I'm walking home with the Galvin some days, and the amount of litter on the side of the street is very concerning. And like she said, it's all types of things. The guys can go out and do it as much as they want every day. It's not going to change unless the culture really changes. So thank you, Stacy, for bringing that up. And again, it just needs to be echoed.
Okay. And I believe Tracy.
Hey, Paul, if I could, I just want to make sure that Grant, that I got the right piece of terrain here. Is the Sherman Street Bridge that you're talking about? You're talking about Asylum and the Yantic River. Is that the bridge?
Yeah, so when that goes down onto, I believe it's Lafayette Street.
Yeah. Okay. And Singh, you've got your hand up, I think, for do you want to double back on something?
Yeah, so that Sherman Street Bridge is already in works, and Deanna might be able to tell us more. And I think the design that they submit, they're trying to widen it out or making sure the turning radius is better on that one. Of course, that was another point, general public awareness on different topics. That's must. We should definitely do that, because I have called myself for 3-4 people. They didn't even know that bulk pickup exists, and they can utilize that. And if it's a 2-family house, every unit can call for bulk pickup. So these are some of the things a lot of folks either don't know, or they don't even care to call, because it's just one phone call and their mattresses could be just picked up. So we definitely need to put more stress into the general public awareness. And I did attended those cleanup street events. This enormous amount of garbage we picked up in like 3 hours. So there is a big need for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Singh. I think that a lot of times when you want people to stop doing something that they're doing that is not a behavior, it's good to give them another option. They probably sometimes are unaware that there is another option to use rather than the one they are. And just making sure they know what that is sometimes gives them, you know, the option they need to start doing what you want them to do. At least for the mattresses anyway, not for all the other clutter and litter that is being disposed on the streets. Tracy. Tracy,
we don't hear you. You're still muted. Okay, she had her hand up. You're right about that, Paul. Maybe let's go to Darrell, because he's got his hand back up.
Okay, Darrell.
So, one of the things I want, and I just, I'm a realistic individual when it comes to certain things. And I think one of the things that we have to also take into consideration is, as we want individuals to change a culture which, you know, I agree with changing the culture of how they do things. One of the things we have to also look back and you have to realize some individuals, some individuals don't feel as though their neighborhoods have been a priority of the city. And I'll give you a prime example. Many individuals lived in Greenville my entire life. And there have been many individuals within that community that for many years felt as though they were the forgotten area. And so as we have started to change that culture and how we express and do projects across the city, one of the things you have to look at is, okay, they can go out and clean up all the garbage in their community, but if there are no projects to enhance the amenities and businesses and sidewalks and all of those other pieces in their neighborhood, you know, it's the part of, well, what is the effort for? So I think you will start to see that shift as we've spread out how we are doing projects and tackling neighborhoods over the last set of years. But I think it's that piece, you know, as you pave roads, as you fix sidewalks, as you fix playgrounds and all of those other little pieces, people will buy into keeping their neighborhoods clean. But the biggest part is in order to change the culture, they have to see the investment from all angles. I think the other big part is we have to realize that it is good, of course, they have it in the newsletter and different places on what we do as a city, but we also have to recognize, being as diverse as Norwich is, being as diverse as we are, there are individuals by their culture and just their language barrier that don't understand what our expectation of cleanup is. So I think part of that sometimes is realizing that as things have changed over the years, we have to realize that it's a much larger culture shift for us as a community than it would have been maybe 10 years ago. And so there are a lot of work pieces and components to building neighborhoods. And trust me, I've seen it, having went to college in Springfield and watching surrounding communities around beautify. I've watched and helped with Springfield in general beautify their community, and it takes a huge culture shift, but they have to see the buy-in from not just us wanting them to do something. It has to be a direct effort on how we tackle it together.
Perfect. Thank you, Darrell. Tracy, are you able to unmute? I know that you're saying I need to unmute you, but you're in control of that, truly.
Looks like she's still muted.
Yeah.
The actual host is I don't know, potentially Jackie. Is that who's got the host controls right now?
Probably. She could have given that to someone else before she. Well, the iPad's still.
It was Leon, and he gave it to me.
Paul, it's Jackie. Excuse me. Tracy's muted by the host.
Right.
Well, I don't, if I'm the host, the only thing that I can do is ask, it seems from here, is ask to unmute.
So an option is, Tracy, you could call any one of these folks' phones and probably just call in over your phone, and they could put you next to the condenser mic on their laptop. We'd still hear you.
Or Tracy, you can leave and come back in, and maybe that would just put you back.
That might do it. Sure.
Yeah. Why don't you leave and come back in, Tracy, if you're hearing me. And I'll let you back in and we can start from there. Still waiting for Tracy.
So can I just suggest that while we wait for Tracy to try to work this out, that Pat could give us a little bit of a briefing on the Sherman Street Bridge project, because that's kind of a big deal and it's about to kick off.
Okay.
Okay,
And as long as-
that's like a hanging curveball there. We opened bids on that yesterday, and we had actually got 8 bids, which was a very good thing. The 3 low bids were all within $400,000 of each other, which is very close on it, considering the low bid was 10.3 million. So the low bidder, we're evaluating his bid, but it should, he's a very large contract. Manafort is one of the bigger contractors in Connecticut. So, and they've done lots of bridge projects. So we should be, you know, once we evaluate the bids, make sure everything's complete, we should be awarding shortly and moving ahead with that project. That was pretty much right where the engineer's estimate was as far as construction costs. Now, so that is, well, you can figure another 20% or so. So it's a $12 to $13 million project is what we had been calling it all along. And fortunately, the city is only on the hook for 10% of that. It's 80% federally funded, 10% state funded, and 10% locally funded. So that was a good thing with the bid opening on that project. It should be starting construction early April. There may not be a lot of going on April 1st, but the contractor will be getting materials and things like that.
Sorry to interrupt that. Just wanted to let the host know that Tracy's in the waiting room.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to let her in and she's joining, but now she's in there twice. That's why.
So the Sherman Street Bridge, it'll be a 2 construction season project. Sherman Street's going to be closed for a good part of both of the next 2 summers. So it is going to cause some temporary disruptions, but it's going to be a very big improvement to the to the infrastructure there.
Okay, she should be there. She's.
Do you want to resume with Tracy's? Yeah.
Tracy. Still muted. Well, I'll tell you what, Tracy, I'm sorry. What I can do is in the interim, just call Leon and help him get to that spot. So perhaps if you can hear.
Well, Tracy, just call me on my cell phone and I'll hold my phone up to the microphone. Okay, Tracy, you're live.
All right, thank you. Finally, can you guys hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay. Thank you. Wow, that was a fiasco if I ever dealt with one. The thing is right, we definitely need to improve technology. But I wanted to say that I agreed with Joe and what Darrell was saying, and especially what Stacy was saying about the trash. But it's not just the residents that leave the trash. I've noticed personally, and I've witnessed A lot of the panhandlers that you see on the street, especially by my house, they'll sit there all day and they'll panhandle and they'll leave their trash behind. And it's not just a garbage bag. I mean, it's a pretty big amount of trash that they'll just leave behind and just expect somebody else to pick it up. And I also wanted to say, to go along with what Grant was saying about Asylum Street, that curve, we definitely need a sidewalk on that curve, because I know in the summertime, I like to go for walks and stuff. And I know I've almost been hit on that curve. So I definitely think widening it and adding a sidewalk would make it much better for the residents. And I just wanted to add one last thing. Darrell was talking about infrastructure, and I agree. I've seen, especially on my way to work, I've had to, it's like an obstacle course going down North Main to go towards Route 2, because you're trying to dodge the potholes. So I definitely think those are on a now list. And I think that's all I was trying to say. But yeah, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Okay, John, did you have anything that you wanted to add to the conversation before we ask Patrick to weigh in on that, or?
No, I don't think so. I think we're getting short on time, and I'll throw it over to Pat.
Okay, Pat, it's yours.
Okay, I guess I'll take it from the top. It's nice having the slide here to speak to. So as far as the flooding issues go, I've requested ARP money for that work. I put together a list of projects for the mayor's office shortly after the flooding last year, but the area across from, Bacchus Hospital, that Bliss, the Sachem Plains, hill that comes down there, and the Bliss Street and the cross streets there, that is a big flooding issue over the last few years. It's flooded not just this past summer, but other times too. We're getting more of these large storms, it seems like, very intense storms, where it's not a river type flooding problem, but it's just a localized type flooding from the small streams. So I have requested funds to try to improve that situation there. And it'll be an ongoing type of solicitation through FEMA. They have some monies available for those type of problems. FEMA tends to take a long time. There's a long backlog of work. Like the list of projects that we just met with them about the other day was actually compiled like 4 years ago. So nothing moves too fast with federal government, but maybe with this ARP funds, we can make it happen a little bit quicker. As far as city roads and complaints, we work with Norwich Public Utilities and so that make sure we're not paving roads that are then going to need to be have utility work done on them in the near future. And that holds, kind of ties our hands in some respects, because some of these streets that we're getting the most complaints about now are streets that we've had to hold up on because of required utility work. And the utility work really got set back over the last 2 years, one with COVID back in 2020, but then last year, just the materials, the metal pipe was just not available. So that's what's creating a slowdown to our paving program, just that coordination that we go through with NPU and ensuring that we're not putting good pavement over on a roadway that's going to get dug up in the next few years. Now the complete streets, I've got good news on the complete streets, and John started to get into it, but it's actually more than just those. We've got two community connectivity projects. One was the Rotary, which we just completed, and then the one that John mentioned that we just got awarded the $600,000 for the sidewalks on West Town Street. But in addition to those type of complete street projects, the Dunham Street project, which is under construction now, that one, is a $1.7 million project that we got 100% grant money from the state DOT to do that project. And that's going to include sidewalks along the entire distance. And it's not wide enough to have separate bike lanes, but we're going to put sharrows in and have a shared roadway where the bicycles are, we're trying to make it bicycle friendly, but we don't have the width of the right of way to put in dedicated bike lanes. But that's a complete street type project there too, of 1.7 million. Then we've also got the LOTSIP projects. For the other LOTSIP project is New London Turnpike South. So we've got, from Route 82 down into Montville all the way to the casino. We're working jointly with Montville to have a continuous sidewalk along there and also some bike lanes. So that project is still probably at least a construction season away. It won't happen this construction season, but it could likely happen the next construction season. And that's another that's a $2.1 million project, including the part in Montville, which is about 25% of the work is in Montville. So then we've also got the transportation alternative project for the northern end of New London Turnpike from Norwich town down to Route 82. We're going to be making pedestrian improvements in the section where there's no sidewalks between like where the Stop and Shop Plaza was and the medical offices. That is, you can see a well-worn path along the side of the road where people walk, because there are a lot of people walking in that area, but there is no sidewalk now. But this project will, put sidewalks into those locations, and it'll fix some of the handicap ramps in other sections of the existing sidewalks. So that right there is like $5 million worth of grant funds that we've just taken in or received over the last like just 2 or 3 years. So complete, and we're also then the assistant city planner has put together a complete streets policy, a draft of that, and that's going to be coming to the Public Works Committee shortly, and then it'll probably go to the full council after that to adopt the complete streets policy for the city, basically.
Pat, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Paul, can you let in Tracy? She's in the waiting room.
Actually, she's not.
She just texted me and asked me if she was in the waiting room.
Oh, okay. Well,
so as far as the distressed and blighted properties, we have made some inroads over that in the last couple of years, and a lot of that's because of the real estate market turnaround. It's been easier to sell those properties than it was a few years ago because of the need for housing in Norwich. So we're working on that. The floodway matters and complete streets again. Communicating our ongoing efforts, that's definitely an area where we could improve on. I mean, personally myself, I'm more of a kind of put my head down, get the job done kind of person. I'm not out flaunting what we're doing or necessarily publicizing it well enough. I mean, we update our projects on the city website on a pretty regular basis. I'm not sure how many people go on the city website and look at that, but the more we could do with some type of, I know some public works in larger cities actually have like a public relations person that, that does that type of work. Probably in Norwich, it would be some, like you mentioned with public safety, it would probably be a position that serves multiple departments, but that probably, could help, get the word out there on some of the things that we're doing and some of the opportunities that are available to the citizens, such as what was mentioned with the bulky waste pickups and things like that. So as far as getting out to a variety of neighborhoods, I mean, we try to do things in all parts of the city. We just, we've repaved all of the streets in Greenville in the last couple of years. And we're just putting in now for a block grant project to do sidewalks on Prospect Street, because they're really in poor shape, the sidewalks on Prospect Street. That's, I guess I didn't mention sidewalks specifically yet, but I would certainly agree that, the sidewalk condition in Norwich is not very good. Overall, there's a lot of, sidewalks that need work, and there's a tremendous amount of sidewalks in Norwich. We could probably spend a couple $1 million a year just, replacing sidewalks. We've got an ordinance that says it's the responsibility of the adjacent property owner to do that work on their sidewalk, but there's some question about the enforceability of that ordinance. But sidewalks, I would definitely agree, are a big issue, because it gets down to a quality of life. We have a lot of people that, walk in the city of Norwich, and so that needs to be improved. And there's a lot of places where there's utility poles stuck right in the middle of a sidewalk, and that, we've got to work with public utilities. A lot of those rights of ways aren't real wide, so it's not really an easy fix to move the pole out of the sidewalk. It's like you need to get easements from abutting properties and things like that. But the sidewalk issue, I would agree, is something that can definitely be improved upon in the city. As far as getting buy-in with the community and having them take more pride in the community, we've worked pretty well with some different community groups with these trash pickups. And, I've secured the, so these large pickups that is done by the RISE agency in conjunction with the soup kitchen once a month throughout the warmer weather months. Those I've got the buy-in from the Willimantic Waste to, they waive they as a community effort pay for that material. It's disposed of up at the transfer station. So that, we're trying to create an atmosphere here where, everybody takes pride in the community, including the business, the businesses and and certainly the people that Jill gets together and with that, with the soup kitchen and the RISE agency. They do a great job picking up trash, and we try to work with them and make it as easy as possible for them to accomplish that. So I talked about the Sherman Street Bridge, but yeah, sidewalks, that's an issue. I don't know. I think I don't want to belabor these things too much. I think I've pretty much touched on everything. Do you think I missed anything there, John?
It looks like Deanna's ready to fill in a couple blanks for you as well on all that.
Pat, if you don't mind, I just want to champion some of the things you said and add on a couple of things that Jarrell said. So if I could just have a minute. So firstly, the neighborhood groups, there was more previously. We don't have as many out there. The only somewhat active one at this time is the NRZ in Greenville. But getting those groups up, started again, getting that message out there to Pride of Neighborhoods is really important. One of the things I wanted to say to Darrell is I'm pretty sure that our Greenville National Historic District is the biggest National Historic District in the city, which means there's so many treasured homes that are in that district. And we could use that in our marketing of you live there at a really unique and special place, and keeping that pride of ownership and the pride of living in a historic area is really something I think we could use to get some people's involvement and excitement about where they live. As far as the blight that we have in the city, I wanted to thank the council for the ARP money. We did get assistant zoning blight officer. She is not started yet. She'll be starting hopefully next week. But that means 1.5 people doing blight. Half the time would be doing blight in the city. Alonzo, the new blight and housing code enforcement officer, has been on for a couple months now, has over 90% compliance with voluntary compliance for the people he's been dealing with. I haven't seen that before. We've had a lot of heavy hands with owners, and we're trying to take a different approach. And he, just with his personality, he's gotten really great compliance, and we want to continue with that, listening to the people, but also getting those issues addressed. So we're really happy about that. We've been working really closely with the Public Works Department on all these grants. And in this past summer about the sidewalks, we were able to get a small scholarship a couple of years ago, but because of COVID, we didn't have that person work until this past summer. And they did an assessment of all the sidewalks in the city. I think there's a little bit that wasn't done, a very small area of the city that Dan Deniska, the assistant planner, is going to go out and get that the information himself and finish that program up. But that has been instrumental, I believe, to help Public Works with the assessment. There's photographs of all these sidewalks and accessibility at each of the intersections, and they've been ranked and prioritized. So that's really critical information to make decisions about where we should be investing our money on that. And then one of my last things about blight and issues in the city would be, I think that, as much as we're working and getting the really great success with voluntary compliance with smaller issues, especially homeowners, I think we need to, as a city, take a heavy hand on the property hoarders. And I say that the buyers of our properties in the city that don't do anything with them and then leave them in disrepair. And these are usually commercial properties. And I think that, if with the support of the council that we move forward on these severely blighted properties that are just sitting there and really detracting from our neighborhoods. But that's what I wanted to say. And I wanted to say, thank you for Patrick and his department working so closely with us on all these initiatives, especially Complete Streets. And again, we've been working on that Complete Streets policy since before Dan started in the city when he was on CCP. So we've been wanting to get that in front of the Public Works Committee, and we're finally going to do that in March. So and we get that policy adopted.
So I know it's getting late, but I just wanted to get on my soapbox for a minute again and just touch upon some of the other comments that were made that I think are important, that I just want to reiterate. That one, that Public Works has been cut back in the staff pretty significantly over the last 5 or 6 years. So I know we've had a laborer's position that hasn't been filled the last 2 years. We've requested another mechanic in this in the ongoing budget because we've got a very aging and a very large citywide fleet that has to be maintained. And I also requested a recycling coordinator to be put back in, because the state has the money from the city's going to be getting money from the sale of NIPS now. And that was specifically enacted to try to help pay for recycling coordinators around the state. So I just want to, make those points, reiterate those points. And also that as also mentioned that we need the tools to do the work. So our fleet, our vehicle fleet is really aging in Public Works. We have a lot of our frontline plow trucks, 3 or 4 of them are more than 20 years old. We've got our mission statement says we're trying to keep all of our trucks less than 20 years old. Well, we've fallen behind on that. I've requested 2 large plow trucks the last few years, and we've gotten 1. But in order to get caught up, we need to replace our vehicles at a little quicker rate. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Pat, again, just in terms of prioritizing and focus, just, of all the things you just said, even for that matter on equipment, if you had to prioritize because the resources weren't there to give you the entire Christmas list, what would be, the ones that you would, and you don't have to do this now, but,
No, I can do it right now. So just because I equate Public Works with public service, okay? So in order to better serve the public, if we had a couple more people in the department, such as the recycling coordinator, which would make a direct impact on quality of life type issues, I think the personnel, to me, would be the #1 priority, followed by equipment, and those things will allow us to better accomplish our mission.
All right, thank you. Because that's really what, and at the end of the day, getting to what are we going to do now in the next 12? If the more I hear your priority, it makes it easy for the council to make its decisions as to, with limited resources, where would it go? Where would it spend it? Tracy, are you, I don't know, well, you actually got a chance to weigh in through the phone, but just out of curiosity, I know I've asked Leon to give you some help, and I think that he has. Are you back on? Well, maybe not. All right, so John, did you have one thought, or did you want to just move on to human services?
Yeah, we're going to have to be, I don't want to get everybody overtired, so, because it's 9 o'clock now. Let's go to Tara and talk a little bit about, briefly about human services. We won't do finance tonight. We'll be doing a lot of finance when we get to the budget in about a month. So there's lots of time to talk about finance another time.
Okay. All right, so Tara, if you can just kind of walk us through some of the issues that, doing a little bit of reverse. Tara, if you can kind of walk us through what is your now moment. Again, like you said, you're new, so I don't know whether you've already, in the time that you're there, established let's say a list of what you would like to see done differently. So focus on the next 12 months. What's new, different?
Can I ask that we not reverse it? Because again, because I'm new, it's really important for me to hear what the council's perception of things are and what they.
All right, sounds like a plan. All right, so Mr. Mayor, can you lead us off there?
We'll get it done.
Okay. Well, one of the things that's clear is that this pandemic, I think, showed a lot of the strength of the city, particularly with our former director, Leanne Gomes, and her staff, and now our new director. The path that they charted is,
as long as
some
the
respects,
9 o'clock meeting is over quickly, I'll be in by 10.
Kind of is still evolving, but the tasks remain the same, and that's trying to keep people whole as they weather the issues of whether it's unemployment or reduced work hours, access to food security. We have to continue to do those things. Unfortunately, the food drive that we had organized and ran most of all last year has not been replaced yet. And I know that Connecticut Food Share is working to directly work with the food pantries, which they kind of got away from the year before, but the stated need was probably that much higher. But there's still a lot of people that struggle with food security right here in this city. We average about 1,000 families a week while that was ongoing. So United Way is still putting some food distributions on. They're targeting areas that are referred to as food deserts, where in this case the Starwood supermarket closed down good solid 3 years ago. Now it's the Greenville Taffel area. They don't have a grocer. We do have people developing in that area, and they're seeking to bring a grocer back, but it hasn't happened yet. But I just think we have to maintain our dedication to making sure that that new form of assistance continues, whether it's with rents, utilities. And I know Leanne is working with our dollars, American Rescue dollars, to help fill that gap quite a bit. But we have to be supportive. These are our citizens. I'll stop there. It is late.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joe, I guess we'll keep the pattern going, at least with that. So, and again, Mr. Mayor, if you see the notes being taken, if there's anything there that doesn't strike you as exactly what you wanted, what you mentioned, please let Kevin know.
Small thing before you start, Joe. I think Tracy is in back in the waiting room.
Oh my God. Okay, let me just get it. Yes, she is. So we do have, just on the back end, we do have Leon. Actually, I've been chatting with him, and he's hopefully chatting with her to try to help her get through the technology window to be able to get unmuted. So hopefully that's working. We shall find out. All right. So Joe, can you?
Sure.
She's
Yep.
admitted.
So you know, as we all know, the rec department is a division under Tara now, and one of the things that we heard quite loudly from the community is the need for some sort of a community center. Where I kind of landed on that was, instead of building a standalone one-off building, is having those types of programs that support youth and families in the schools that we already own. So you know, my do now is to start to assemble those programs, use some of the art money to fund them, and get them into our schools and other buildings we already own, so they can start delivering services, you know, to the community. And I'll stop on that, because the person that in our caucus that's really on point on that one is Darrell.
All right. Darrell, since you've been put up at bat by Joe, why don't I just go right there?
So I will say, I've had the privilege of being on the rec advisory, working close with Leanne, with other human services things. I've had a chance to meet with Tara. I think for me, the biggest do now is figure out how we continue to bolster the social service hub aspect of our community. And that's all of the areas within human services, the senior activities, recreational activities, the programs we provide to our youth and family services, adult and family services, all of it. How we bolster that to be more of a one-stop shop for our community. They do an excellent job of getting grants and different things for our community. I think it's how we as a community find a way to invest greater into that. And I think the pandemic has showed some of the strengths that the human service department has provided for families. I think the other part is for me is looking at within some of those services, which they already do, how we more so spotlight the regional partnerships that exist for some of these opportunities to occur. I think that is what's going to strengthen us in Southeastern Connecticut, the opportunities we have. And then I think one of the biggest things, which has been loud and clear, is how we get to a building where not only, and this is just my vision of social service being in one space, with a community space for the community, as kind of like a rec center or whatever you want to call it, but also that connection within education. I think a lot of the things that we dovetail into for human services are also connected to the work that is done within our schools. Those parents that need uniforms, that need mental health services, that need a support group for their child, that needs a support group for that single mother, that needs the recreational opportunities and scholarships for summer camps and things. It all connects together. And we've seen some of those partnerships, the rec department working with the school system last summer. Just all of those little pieces that they provide is huge. And I think for me, I see a huge opportunity as we are working on this school buildings project and looking what other communities around us have done is looking at the opportunity of other buildings being offloaded in the coming years and how we can utilize possibly one of those spaces to maximize the service opportunity, but the connectivity of providing that quality of life piece for our community, but having that central hub that's going to take us to the next level.
Thank you, Darrell. It sounds like you did give us some priorities in that list already, so I'm not going to ask you to prioritize because it seemed like you did that. So Stacy.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so I'll be really quick. Not in any particular order. So the COVID pandemic has really put a tremendous amount of strain on our community. And our Human Services Department has done yeoman's work to meet the needs of our residents, and we have to continue to support those efforts. I have championed using our schools for community centers for 6 years. Our schools are in our neighborhoods, so we don't have the issue of, well, if we put the community center here, we can't get there. We have beautiful schools that we can use to put on programs for our youth. The senior center does a great job taking care of doing programming for seniors. I hear no complaints from the seniors or from the director of the senior center that, they can't put on their programs. While COVID has put a damper on their programs right now, once we get out of this pandemic, they'll be back in place. We need to continue to improve our recreational facilities for everyone, whether it's a resident or a visitor, where we've got money set aside to do those improvements. And I can't wait to see what those recreational facilities will look like once the improvements are done. We have a beautiful park, and we need to continue to make improvements in the park as necessary to keep that as an attraction, again, for people to take a walk, take a, hike, look at the fish in the pond, all those things. So those are my quick 1, 2, 3s. Thank you.
Perfect. Swarjeet?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I do agree creating recreational activities is very important. And especially during winter times, we need to keep our residents busy and keep them out of trouble. And it also give opportunity to feed them with some good message and some other general public awareness messages that we talked about. So there is some flow of information when they come to attend those events or those activities. Also, I personally is in favor of investing more money into running the programs and using our existing infrastructure that we already have. And that might be a little more chat how to implement that. But this is my recollection of some of the thoughts. Human resource have been very helpful, and nobody can deny the results they have produced during the pandemic. And not just that, they have helped a lot of individuals who were suffering from opioid crisis and other challenging situations. Even today, I attended a little bit of their virtual event that they had on safeguarding teens from drugs. So I think, of course, like during pandemic, there was less one-to-one connection, but, maybe we still have to continue, who knows for how long, So we should definitely stress upon more virtual events for the time being, as well as try to create more safe spaces where we can conduct outdoor events and stuff. I did had few discussions with Leanne Gomes about some other perspectives about how we can make sure that diversity and inclusion portion exists in our human resource as well, not just on hiring, but providing the resources in different languages to our residents. Also, how we can connect some of the residents who need a job to the local businesses. So let's say if they don't have a ride, but if we can guide them, or there is some system in place that why don't you talk to this business? They were looking for help. So, that will keep that family energy in a good way, because somebody's working in their home now and they'll be less dependent upon some of the services that city of Norwich is offering them. So another thing that we talked about was the cultural calendar, which we have it on our actually Norwich Public School website, but we don't have it on our city website. But again, few important things are invest in the programs, spend our resources in programs, then putting money towards infrastructure, and then putting money towards the programs. So my goal is to basically what other people are saying, use the existing infrastructure and invest where it needs to be invested. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sounds like we've had, the absolute synergy of trying to make sure that the programs are the things that are really the delivery of service. A lot of support for not just doing as is, but adding. So the now moments are adding to those services. Tracy, I'm going to take a wild stab. Are you able to speak? Are you unmuted?
Oh my God, I'm unmuted. This is great.
Wow. All right. And
it worked.
It worked. All right. So I'm hoping that Leon finally was able to break through with the magic bullet solution. So very good. So you're up.
I wanted to echo what Singh and everybody else said. I do think that using the existing schools as a place in place of a community center and just adding extra programs, I think would be more cost efficient. And I think it's easier because, like Stacy was saying, some people don't have a reliable mode of transportation. So I think this would be much more convenient for residents. And I personally think after school programs, kids need them. I grew up in a city where we had a rec center, and it really does help. It really does prevent kids from going into gangs and getting into trouble. And to me, it really does save lives.
Excellent. And Grant, can you take us, is there anything additional to what you've heard that is, or you want to reinforce a new initiative or an ad initiative that you think is something that we should be doing?
I think that they hit on a lot of the stuff that we've all been kind of discussing, and we've all decided that we need to move in the direction of we need to promote youth sports and strong after-school programs at the schools. My biggest thing for human resources, I just want to make sure that we're pinpointing and targeting what exactly we need to be helping people with. And so what I've noticed, just in the short months that I've been working at NFA and working with a generation that's different than than mine, even though we're so close together, is that the cell phones really have like taken over a majority of the kids' life and in my opinion, well-being. And I think if we could try and kind of make an initiative as a city to try and kind of cut down on the amount of use of technology, or try to be creative in the way that we can not enforce that kids stop using it, but give them better options, in the fact that we need to give places that people want to be outside, and where people want to get the necessary exercise that they need, kind of the necessary mental health and well-being that they need. Just the 60 minutes a day out in the park, walking around, like Stacy said, just even like interacting with nature is a great way to keep your mental health in a good state. Like the fact that most of us use our screen too often is not healthy. Even, this meeting has gone on for 3.5 hours now, and I'm itching to get off, but that's because we go to work, we're on the screen, we go home, we're on the screen. It's just we need time to at least make for ourselves for 60 minutes of well-being, and it makes it a lot easier for everyone if there's a place that we can all go to kind of use it. Even the track, I can remember seeing people at the track, using the track constantly. And I think we need to just kind of promote that message that we need to use the spaces that we have a little bit more. So thank you.
Thank you, Grant. That was a nice take-home moment. So, Tara, at this point, from what you've heard, anything that you want to either support, add on, question, anything at all that comes to that you'd like to do relative to this, or even just give us your impression of a priority list from all of the things you've heard. What are the things that you would want the this group to support most from the list that you've just heard?
Right, so I'm going to kind of go down in comments and then we'll pull it all together. So to the mayor's point, and wanting to maintain our level of service and dedication. So there's an importance of having humans in human services to maintain that level. One thing that I feel is kind of missing from our current structure is that supervisor of social worker position that used to be in adult services. So with that back, I would be able to focus on some of the larger issues like the regional partnerships and the food programs and things that, I can put a little bit of time in here and there, but I can't have a very focused effort on making these things come into fruition, because it's a lot to manage an office with people coming in for assistance every day, all day. To Joe's point, proponent of schools, the community centers, we do have money put aside from ARPA, but that requires, a partnership between the schools, and so that's a work in progress. We have had one meeting about that, but there is money for that approach. To Darrell, I love his idea of a centralized approach. That's another thing that I've noticed quite quickly. Our department's not very unified, and we would be better able to serve people if my divisions, not the senior center because they have their own space, but if youth, family, rec, and adult family services were all together. So I know that everybody's a big fan of the schools and community centers, but I think it's actually, worth looking at a community center, standalone community center that can also serve as a hub for human services in the city. To Tracy's point, she grew up in a city where there was a rec center. If we're trying to operate this community center model in the schools, the rec department doesn't have any ownership there. They don't have any flexibility. Everything is what the schools will allow us. So we're losing an important piece of that rec, model, that community rec center model, when we try to stick it in the schools. Darrell, to your point about the connection to education. So one of the opportunities, and again, I'm new, so I don't have the complete lay of the land, but I come from working on a lot of community change, right? And when things are siloed and put in their little divisions, that's where the divisions focus. And when you take them up and centralize them, then they serve everyone. So, you talk about a connection to education. So instead of funding a social worker in one school to address a certain number of needs in that school, if the social worker is at the central level and a human services office and helping the students with a particular issue across schools, you have a potential for more impact. So not that I want to take resources from the schools, but sometimes I think we need to look at, are we missing out on people because we're siloing services places when there could be an opportunity to reach a broader population? And so I think the last thing, we do have a job program in the adult services. So I have met with Kevin. I'm excited it's a great thing to have in adult services, because when we're meeting with someone who's falling behind on rent, we can connect them immediately to somebody to help them look at, do they need additional training? How can we help you find a job? So I'm excited to help figure out, I've met with Kevin, how can we partner better to be training people as we bring new businesses in, making those connections. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to working on that. Diversity, equity, inclusion, definitely. I think across the board, we need to look at our hiring practices, and we definitely need to make efforts as a city and in individual departments to do our part.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Tara. So that seemed to work. Again, following the same model of letting, getting ideas out on the table first, and then you bringing us home. So thank you for doing that. Any questions for Tara from the members of the team, or John? Did you have comment you wanted to make about that?
Well, not really. Just wanted to let everybody know that that Paul will be taking these notes and we'll be putting them into a report, separated economic, and then the one that we talked about today. Although this was a long night, it still was better, I think, than trying to do it all in one day. I don't think we would have got through the substance. We got through a lot of substance tonight that I think when we had everything in one day, we didn't treat everything the same because we got tired towards the end of the day. So in a way, this was much better. So the key is then follow up to this, and we'll be discussing that after we have a summary report then.
So yeah, we've focused in these two sessions on three questions, which, where are we now, where do we want to go, and how do we get there? And to me, the biggest burning question is, what do we do from here? Well, that's the burning question, and the burning question has to be where, we've tried to make people focus on specific things that they want to do now in the next 12 months. So what we'll do is produce this report, and also kind of focus it in on giving you a template for creating the final, let's say, specific goals that you will have to choose and select as the ones that you want to adopt going forward as the council. So we'll give you a list of, from just this information that we've gathered and your input, what are some of the goals that obviously are generated from this information. We'll put them in goal kind of format so that you get a sense as to what you could select and choose to act on going forward. And I think that will give you a good resource to either modify those goals as written or add to them or whatever you want to do going forward. But at least you'll have the data and the goals that you're selecting from this in a focused kind of way. So on that note, number one, I want to thank all the members of the panel, the council, Mr. Mayor, as well as John, and obviously Kevin and Leon and Jackie, and all the help that they provided and putting these things together and making an effective and efficient meeting for both platforms. Hope we've been able to give you some facilitation that allows you to get to a work product that you are proud to have created in the last couple of sessions. And we will make sure that we get that to you in within a week's time so that you have something to work from. And that's our commit to you. So thank you. Really appreciate everything, guys. And good night, one and all.